Welcome to another episode of the Paragon Path. This is episode 10, Scouts Without a Doubt. We've got 4 amazing guests with us today to talk about everything that you can do to get better at Scout. Make sure you can get those shots in, be where you need to be, control the battlefield the way you want to, and be the ultimate utility character you need to be. Stick around and enjoy.
All right, and we are live. This is episode 10 of the Paragon Path. This is Scouts Without a Doubt, because I'm not. Y'all are proudly Paragon Masters of Scouts, so that's what this episode is about. We have 4 guests today, because this is, a class that needs a lot of explanation. So the 4 guests are going to explain themselves. We'll go over some tips and tricks, and then you guys will get to play Scout better, when we can all play again. I don't know, kingdoms are in different spots. So we're going to start with, to the left of me, which is Arduin.
Hello, I'm Arduin Felsong. I'm from Viridian Outlands, Kingdom of Viridian Outlands now. I got my Paragon 2 years ago now.
Nice. We're going to say on the top, my video is the only video that matters because it's the one that everyone will see. So on the right of me is Snow.
Yo, I'm a Snow Windwatcher. I was a member of GP. That's where I got my master hoods out of, and now I've relocated to CK. So that's where I play out of.
And we'll go left below. We've got Storm.
I was muted. Hi, I'm Storm Thunderbrand. I've been playing since 2015. I come from Viridian Outlands. I was actually Arduin's Paragon when he first started. And I got my Paragon around 2017, I believe.
Nice. And last but not least, we've got Torgen.
I'm Sir Torgen Copperman. I got my Paragon, oh boy, it was like 6 or 7 years ago, I think. I should have looked that up. Apologies I didn't.
Don't worry, that is exactly what I did.
It's all really relative. It doesn't really matter. Tactics and abilities will change with each edition, but tactics and strategy are something that stick with you forever. So it's it doesn't matter when you got it. It matters keep up the skills. So as always, we've got to make a rubric. If we're asking new people to become Paragons, we've got to tell them what to shoot for. So what is the difference between a level 6 and a Paragon? We're going to start with Snow for this question.
Level 6 and a Paragon. I'd have to say, just looking at it from my point of view, is level 6 is something that you get just from signing in, whether Paragon is, I would have to say it'd have to revolve around just battlefield presence. What you take onto the field, making that class your own. When you step out in front of a group, it's, whoa, hey, hey, he's playing Scout. Let's hold up. You change the whole aspect of the field. That's what separates you from a level 6 to a master or a Paragon.
People are making strategies and tactics around you because you are such a big effect on the field. Let's go with Torgen for that as well.
Well, skills pay the bills, as they say. It is all about skill usage for me. Yeah, level 6, you can get that just from attending online things or showing up to classes, whatever. But on the field, if you know how to utilize your abilities, then you will stand out. Do you know that you have your releases and you use your heal on other people? I can't believe that is something that people forget. I know it used to be a thing, but that's beyond the point. Another gig is, I'm not just talking about attuned or evolution. We'll get there later. You need to be more than just a lightly armored fighter on the field. You have a plethora of abilities. Don't forget to use them.
We can't just be melee class A, melee class B, melee class C. There are some abilities that go along with this and specialties.
Can't just cast sword.
As much as we have people that would love to just cast sword, there's more to our game. There's also shield. Let's go with Arduin for that as well.
Well, at my field, we have a lot of veterans who have level 6 in so many classes just from being in the game so long. But really, I think one of the biggest differences between level 6 and Paragon is a love for the class. Because I got level 6 Scout like a year and a half or so before I got Paragon, but I played Scout from like my second day of Damned Guard because I loved it. And like that's one of the biggest differences for me is I put in the work because I love the class and I just wanted to play it.
I mean, you gotta enjoy what you're doing, especially on a path that is Paragon Hood. It's not, I'm gonna get there now. That's not how this works. You gotta put in the time. It takes a little bit. Storm, what's your take on it?
Um, Level 6 is someone that would know their abilities and use them to an extent, and a Paragon is someone that can use those abilities to change games. Um, I, I don't really have a better way of explaining it, but Kaz in an earlier one of your videos had a really good explanation of um, MMORPGs. When you hit
Yeah.
max level, a lot of people will tell you that your journey has just begun, and
Yeah,
that's the same thing with Paragon.
it really is true. I mean, we're not as much reliant on like farming and equipment and stuff like that. It's just refinement of your abilities and knowing when to use them, how to use them, the intricacies of like stuff, like knowing you can release touch certain opponents, which is super cool and fun, but you can't touch release other opponent. Knowing those intricacies is what really pushes you beyond the level of I'm good to I'm great and past that. Um, all right, we've got a rubric down. We know what we're looking for. So let's go to the beginning when you guys started playing Scout. What are 3 things you wish you knew when you started playing Scout or started on your Paragon path? So let's start with Torgen.
All right. Number one, I wish I knew there was a Paragon pass. When I chose Scout, it was because my park had, it was a meta choice because my park had like 4 or 5 assassins that were just everywhere and just like, we need a counter. Let's get out here. And yeah, it just stuck. Number two, the amount of people who don't know how tracking works is funny. Um, this will come to me every single time when I talk about this out of that event, and someone yelled at me to track a monk out of sanctuary. Yeah, let that set in.
Uh,
And the third thing is how big of a role we can play on the battlefield outside of I hold enchantments that can fight.
yes, that
Yes.
it with the changes that have coming up or proposed changes for Gathering of the Crowns, Scout has been on my mind a lot, and just looking at it from like a caster perspective, I love your list. You guys have some of the best spells for utility ever. You don't have a lot of them, but you have some of the best, and it's like half of your list is what I take on every bard list. Just I'm like, oh, I want release. I'd love tracking. That'd be super fun. I want that heal if I'm playing a healer. You guys, it's all this stuff that I want. You guys have it. It's great. Storm.
So number one, I wish someone would have explained to me what EX abilities meant.
Oh,
That is so useful, and it's something that a lot of people forget.
yes.
Um, the importance of dispel magic on your list of things you can do is such a big thing, and I think you were talking about the. I've looked into the Gathering of the Crowns that you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw the dispel magic thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But
We will.
yeah. And number three, learn your charging can, because for the exact same reason that you were talking about, we have a lot of things, but we don't have a lot of them. What we do have is chargeable stuff, and that it will help a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
It's it's really annoying, and it's happened. I've seen it way more often than I think most people have. Because I'll play Power Bard or Song of Power Bard, and I'll sit there and I'll start chanting Song of Power, and then people will come up and they'll forget the charge incant entirely and just mumble for like a minute and a half and then walk away. It's like that's not how our game works, but sure, I get sure a minute and a half is way too long. Just learn the charge incant. It's like 7 lines or something. It's super easy. Um,
4, and it's
four
so easy to get 4 lines, and
is it
it's
four
so
lines?
easy for you.
It is 4 lines.
4,
four
and then
Flows.
it's in your head, so it flows so well. Just learn it. Just learn it.
It's
Dude, just stay in the car when you're driving to work. That's all you
yeah.
gotta do.
Yeah.
The shower, the car, where like at work, if you've got a really loud machine next to you, no one will hear you. Just keep saying it. It doesn't matter. It's easy. Snow, what's your take? 3. Or Storm, did you get your 3?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
you just finished with me.
All right. I just want to make
I
sure you
wish
got your 3.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess when I first started, I guess just telling me back in late 6, early 7, uh, how much the class would change till now. So that's a big one right there. Other than that, I'd have to take a ride on that and say definitely practicing my charge because I am terrible at wordplay when it comes to that. Other
It's
than that, just getting used to dropping those points from way back in the day when you peg somebody with an arrow from 4 to 8 points all the time. That's just I'm old school like that, so I'd have to say that for me.
it Bose took a beating from 6 to 7 to 8,
Yes.
and some of the focus groups I'm in, they're still yelling, "Bows are too powerful." I'm like, "Dear, did you read any of 6 at all?"
They're
Yeah.
not. Wear armor.
Just physical armor is 80% of most melee class. Like everyone besides monk is like, hey, you get 2 points or 3 points, or if you're paladin or anti paladin, or warrior, it's like 4 or 5 or 6. Put some stuff on. It's easy. Um, yeah, it amazes me sometimes what like the amount of nerf we've put on the bow, yet it's still very effective in the right hands. In the right hands, it is a lethal, destructive piece of equipment that needs to be on the field still. What's your take, Arduin?
Well, I'd go with the bow, actually. I would, I would have wished people told me how useful a bow could be on the field, even just for distraction, because that's how I start my game. I'd usually just shoot off a couple arrows, but like I didn't think about it because I was like, oh well, you can dodge arrows, but they're really they're really useful. And being able to track opponents and teammates out of insubstantial, that's something I wish I knew a lot earlier on. And yeah, EX abilities as well. Like I wish I understood better EX abilities.
They're kind of a mess currently. The way it's written is like half telling you to ignore certain rules, but then remember these ones, and it does this but not this. And there's at one point I remember we had a ruling stating that enchantments that grant abilities, their abilities are considered magical even if the original ability is EX, and it's just all these back and forth little weird problems, interactions. I think it's something we need to fix. But like EX abilities, just ignore Promag entirely, which is hysterical. Oh my god.
If I remember correctly, you can cast them without a free hand as well, right? Because they're not
Mhm.
Yes.
magical abilities.
Yeah. And they're not magical. They don't break. They are an incant, but they don't need that free hand. That's super nice. If they're ambulant, I only think
Tracking
there's like
is.
2.
Tracking is
Tracking's
EX and
ambulant.
ambulant.
Yeah, and then there's not many other ambulant abilities that anybody else gets without adding ambulant to it. It's kind of a rare tack on, but tracking a ranged release from insubstantial, golden, just great. Um, all right, so we've got 3 things we wish we knew. Let's go on to some common mistakes that we've seen on the battlefield that we wish people would avoid more, and possibly the reasons why it's bad. But I think we'll all go into that pretty easily. Arden, let's start with you.
Assuming there's going to be someone to give you enchantment is big, especially with scouts, because a lot of people see evolution and they're hoping that there's a druid out there ready to give them a golem stack, and that's not always the case. You gotta prepare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things for me, I'd say.
Yeah, the relying on another class to make your class useful is I wouldn't say never a good plan, but it's often not a great plan.
Mm.
And you guys do have evolution, which kind of relies on somebody else to give you something, but it doesn't have to be a druid. It could be, I mean, scouts with void touch would be terrifying. Just steal life for all your charge abilities. You have some immunities on top of that now. Plus, you have armor breaking with all your swings. Just nightmarish. Be great. Any other common mistakes for you?
Not getting armor, I'd say, or not diversifying, really, because like one of the best things about Scout is you can do so much with it, and I see a lot of people that just go low, and they just stick to that the whole time. Like you gotta try different things with this class. That's how you really make it shine.
You've got versatility in your equipment choices. Use it. So now, what are some common mistakes to avoid?
I would have to say it's pretty basic, but when you're out there just rocking a bow, uh, definitely have other weapons on you. That's a big one. That's that's one I see quite a bit, especially with newer people coming in. Not bashing on them, just trying to help them out a little bit. Just hey, take something else. Even if you're not good with it, it's something to have in your background. Other than that, I would have to say stop focusing on the hard stuff first and learn your easy stuff.
Mhm.
And really take a step back and just look at the field and learn it. See where you fit.
Right. I mean, everybody can benefit from learning tactical and strategic abilities and a thought process that are that way. But Scout, because you fit basically anywhere you want to go,
Yeah,
you got to know where you're going to be the most effective and choose that spot and make it count. And it's,
exactly.
I mean, the ability to carry a bow, like you can bring a bow and a shield to the field. You just can't have them with you at the same time.
Yeah,
You can go where you want. Just make sure your shield or bow are available to get picked back and forth. It's fantastic. Super nice. Torgen.
Everyone's already touched on it a little bit, but yeah, please remember that the abilities are EX except for hold person,
Yeah, it's the
Which-
only one.
which is really weird to me, but that's a whole different conversation. I guess I could see how you don't have to point with your finger. You could just do a mid combat hold person. That'd be a little bit strong, but maybe.
I mean, if you got a shield in hand, all you got to
50-50.
do is just like open the palm. It's no
Yeah.
longer counted as wielded; it's carried, so that's your open hand. You point generally with it, and you're done.
Right. But yeah, also remember with the EX, your touch can be any limb to anybody. I have stepped on people's feet while releasing them while holding somebody off type of deal. Like, don't be afraid to not just use your hands.
Mhm.
Secondary thing, as Arduin said earlier, yeah, pick up a bow, fire a few shots across the field, even if you don't think they're going to get somewhere, they still have to think about it if
It
it lands
moves
close
feet.
to them. Yes.
It moves feet very effectively.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The Archer episode, they talked about having a loaded bow is the same thing as a shove, because people just like don't want to get shot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you're just walking around the field with a bow, not drawn, arrows knocked, but you're not. It's not drawn. And people are just like, I don't really. Nah, I'm okay. Don't even need the
That
ability.
kind of works. That works with our dispel too, by the way.
Oh
Yeah.
It's amazing how many times people
Mhm.
don't want to lose their enchantments. So don't forget, it can be a shove.
We talked about in the wizard
Um,
episode. That's using your your stutter casting or your false castings, making people think you're casting it, and then stop, and just start over again, or do another incant or anything like that. It doesn't use your ability, so that one D-mag turns into a bunch of shoves. It's still a D-mag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when Steve decides to like take your bluff and charge at you in 6 points of armor and 4 enchantments and 2 flails, now you have that D-mag.
Hopefully, you don't find yourself in that situation.
He's back from Germany now, so it might happen.
Yeah. Final thing is don't disrespect the throwies. You should probably carry a couple with you because those are very nice surprises, especially if someone's like, "Oh, you dropped your bow." It's like, "Yeah, you got me." Nah.
And you guys only get large throwies.
Yeah.
That's right.
I know they're a little more cumbersome to carry around, but I've seen some really ingenious ways to carry them. I mean, different bandoliers and things like that.
Yep.
Somebody had little strings attached to them, and they were basically just pinched in a linchpin on their hip, and they could just pull them out like kunai and throw them.
It's pretty cool.
A bunch of different.
They're not
ways.
too bad either for cumbersome. You can make them flat.
Mm-hmm.
They can fit quite a bit. I think they minimum is like 10 inches too, so they're not too bad.
No, it's just not the same as the assassins.
The 2.5 inch pucks, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I can carry 160 of these in a backpack. Ready?
There's one guy in the park who brings a laundry basket
Oh my
that
god.
has like 60 of them. He dumps half of them on the field in one spot, walks over, dumps half on another spot, and goes back to his spawn.
I mean, you could do that as a scout. They're just a lot less in that bag.
Yeah.
Still works. Projectiles
It's like
are
2
projectiles. 2 bags. Any other common mistakes that we missed?
Yeah, I didn't get to go.
Oh, my
Yeah.
bad. Sorry. Sorry.
It's all good. It's similar to the barbarian. Don't use all your abilities at once. Kind of spread them out. Kind of pick when you're going to use them because you don't have a lot.
Yeah.
Don't get set into one combat style. I think we touched about it with the bow, but I got into the habit of doing sword and board a lot. Don't.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, a lot of people do. But you have the ability to do a lot of range, a lot of flow, sword and board, throwaways. You have everything. Use it.
Yes.
You can't be a cowboy as a scout. You need to work with your team, figure out where you'll be most effective, and go from there. You can't really like Warrior's one of those ones that you can kind of get away with it of like, well, I already know that I should be up front, so I'm just gonna go do that. They already know I'm gonna do that, so I'm gonna go do that. Scout, you really want to talk with your team, especially when it comes to enchantments. It was like what Arduin was saying, that you're not going to always have that druid, but you may have a healer or a wizard that might be able to give you some fun stuff. So communicate, see what you can find.
Yeah, learning the enchantments that other classes have is also super. I think it's vital for. I'd say everyone should learn it because then you can learn what works best with your class, what doesn't work best with your class, and I mean, no one knows better what works for you than you. So if you know what your options are, you can pick and choose what you like. So like I know I love Phoenix Tears because I'll get Phoenix Tears myself. It opens up an ability to play songs as well, so I can bounce around and still enchant myself using my songs. That doesn't work for everyone because they don't fight the same way that I do. We don't spin through like songs back and forth every single 6 seconds. But find what works best for you, make it happen, and then talk to your teammates about, having those enchantments on hand. If you like having Gift of Earth, ask people to take it. I'm not saying that's the best option, but like, if that's what you want.
First off, why?
I don't know. You don't want to talk or cast? I don't.
I guess depending on the day, if I don't want to wear armor, it might be okay.
Yeah. Learning the enchantments is super important, and I think it's another. Learning everybody else's classes is such a tall order, but it does help because then you can target and see other people on the field, and you're like, oh, that wizard could potentially have wounding. I don't really want to get wounded 30 feet away from him, so let's move on to something else. We'll go over here or whatever. And it definitely will change the way you mentally think about the field, and like Snow was saying, fit on the field where you fit best. Make it work.
And on that point, it's not as big as how would I word it? Chore as you think. When you're learning the other classes, all you really need to do is learn how they can affect you and the rest of your team. But more importantly, you, right? So it's like we were saying before, Druid is a really good example of this, of how many enchantments they have. But Wizard, I prefer the enchantments off Wizard just because of how much damage you can do with them.
Yeah, they're
and
all offensive.
That's exactly, and that's just all knowledge of the class, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh god, now I'm thinking about scouts with vampirism. That's too much power. All right.
Yeah, we got all kinds of combinations,
Well, I mean,
not just from Druid.
you get.
Hmm.
We'll talk about it in a little bit, but you guys get a free enchantment slot. Like,
Mm-hmm.
great.
Spellcasters love us, man.
Hey,
They don't have to use an attunement. It's
right?
great.
Should. All right. So we were just talking about it, but we're gonna go deeper into it. Where does Scout fit on the battlefield? Roles, positioning, meta, size of field changes. Storm, because I kind of forgot you on this last one. How about you start this one?
All right. On small field, it you're how are we determining small field, Merrick? Are we talking like 5, 6 people or a team?
I'd say like 10 or less.
10 or less? Okay.
Yeah.
So at that point, you'd be roughly 10% of your stick on your team.
Mm-hmm.
So chances are you're going to be more of a frontline fighter. Not saying that you're going to be stuck there, but chances are. It really just it's like we were talking about before of talking with your team, finding out where you'll fit best, and adapting to what you need to do. Excuse me.
Yeah, especially with your kit. Like if you don't have the throwies today or something like that, knowing where you can fit in based on the stuff you've got.
And communicating that to your team.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's,
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I kind of I combined two of these questions, I think, with because we were talking about size of field in one of them. But medium-sized field, you're allowed to be a little bit, or you're able to be a little bit more open on where you can go.
Mhm.
Again, communication with your team is key, and then large field flanking is super important. And with the amount of stuff that you have, it's not really good frontline because there's so many targets. You're probably gonna run out of stuff. But if you flank and you find the skirmishes that you're well suited to, you can be a terror.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Pick and choose your fights. Well, is, I mean, basically every melee player should. And most people should learn how to pick and choose their fights correctly, anyways. I mean, casters have a little bit of a different setup because you're picking and choosing on different parameters, but you're still picking and choosing your targets. You're not casting awe at a barbarian because that's not how that works at all. But you are picking and choosing fights that you know either you can win or you're going to come out on top with a positive benefit. Either way, that's a huge factor becoming a Paragon because now you're not spending wasted time trying to beat something that you know you can't or you don't think is going to be worth your time. It's time management, but it sounds way more fun when we say pick and choose your fights.
Right. And on that point too, if your team needs you to take on something that you might not be well suited for, it's like we were talking about before. Enchantments can change a game.
Oh yeah.
If you're being asked, oh, there's a 6-point warrior out this way, we need you to take him out. Okay, you got an armor breaking enchantment because I'm gonna need that. You know.
Actually, yeah, you guys are well suited for that.
Yeah, you get that armor break. What you saying? Void touch was gives you armor breaking.
Yeah.
My God, would that help? You know.
Plus, you've got your DMAG that you can pop on the.
Get rid of the
warrior.
ancestral off.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good
very well
combo.
suited for that.
All right, that's my next check on my list. Is just always bring Void Touch for scouts and bards.
And assassins, dude. Holy crap.
Oh, that's a good point.
Unlimited poisons.
I don't know. I like it better on anti-paladin because like they have poisons, they have some brutal strikes, they have some ridiculous stuff that they've got. Hopefully
and now 3 immunities.
Oh god. Well. Yeah.
Because it's the sorcery.
Yep.
Flame and death.
Yeah. Well, and spirit because they're cursed.
Right.
Which is a weird...
offensive immunities.
Yeah. It's a little wonky, but it works. Arduin, rolls in the battle. Or no, you've got large battlefield left still, Storm. Or
no, I went through it.
You went through it.
Flankings.
Flankings, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a long weekend.
Come on, Merrick, keep up.
I thought today was Sunday when I woke up this morning because I had like half of yesterday off. So I'm a little bit like, this is the end of the weekend. I got a whole other day left. Booyah!
Right.
All right, Arduin, rolls in the battlefield.
I was pretty lucky because when I started at my field, we were a small barony, and we worked our way up to a large duchy.
Ooh.
So I got a lot of experience across all sorts of fields. Like roles and positioning, I think that depends on where your strong suits are, but I like as a scout, I usually I'm a little tankier. Like I have 3 points everywhere, so tend to I tend to square up a little more with the front line.
Mhm.
If they have warriors or something, then I still have my dispel to threaten, and I have full person. Like I can work around those things, but like Storm said, like flanking is so good as a scout. Like medium and large fields, like you can really do some destruction with flanking.
You guys are mobile as all get out. Like, no questions asked. You guys are probably one of the most mobile classes besides Assassin, who just goes invisible and then, or not, he goes insubstantial and then runs around it that way. Like,
Hmm
3 points of armor, ranged weapons. You've got releases to get yourself out. You get the heal in case you get wounded. You guys have get out of free jail cards left and right just to keep running, and it's amazing when you can actually utilize that.
hmm
Snow.
Yeah, sometimes
Oh yeah.
No, you're good.
sometimes I find uh, like positioning is a little weird
Mm-hmm.
on our field. Like we go through, and I'm sure every field does this, but we go through our little phases where everyone's playing a barbarian today,
Oh
and
yeah.
next week everyone's
Metas change and adapt a lot.
yeah, and
At
then
your
the
field in
next week,
particular, it's nuts.
oh yeah, like it's just bananas. But like the positioning, like that's another good thing about the class is you can kind of fit yourself in on the front line if you have to, but then switch to flanking or switch to a little more in the middle so you're like releasing and trying to heal and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you gotta know your opposing classes. Like barbarian and warrior are really like the two melee classes at least that I'm always worried about because like barbarians have armor breaking and they usually carry a pole. And warriors, like you have to outstick them for 6 points. Like
It's hard.
it's
A
not
lot.
a yeah, it's not a winning battle a lot of the time.
Yeah, if you've got, I mean, it's really difficult to outstick someone so well that has twice your amount of armor. It just,
Mhm.
you got to be almost warlord levels above them to just get it to work. And, I mean, if you can do that, great. But there's not that many warlords that are also paragons. Like, there's a handful I know of, and they're the lower percentage of warlords. So
But that's where the enchantments come into play, where
yeah.
you can really change the tide in your favor. It's just like we were saying, you have a dispel magic for that ancestral,
Mm-hmm.
and if you have that void touch, you are now taking their armor instead of 6 point or 6 or 7 hits to kill them. It's now closer to 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It does make a difference.
It all adds up, and it's, I mean, enchantments I think are a great equalizer as long as the sources are equal on both sides. Because I mean, if you're trying to balance two teams and you put two druids on one and none on the other, you're looking at one slaughter of the target's face. You're
Yeah.
looking at one slaughter from one side and just a real bad time on.
Maybe if one's level 1, like
I got bark skin, guys. Let's go.
Yeah.
entangles.
Don't discount entangle, heat weapon, dagger combo.
Oh my god.
No, I don't. I don't. We've all
Yes.
been there.
The dreams. Um, yeah. Back to battlefield sizes. Snow.
Uh, Yeah,
What a tangent.
I just have to probably just go along with that. I think, you know, field sizes change every day, but going back to just small field sizes, I think yeah, you're pretty much like Storm said, about 10% of the stick out there.
Mm.
I'm not gonna run a stick regardless. I'm still gonna rock the bow, so it doesn't matter to me. But I think you do need to really take a look at what you're bringing and utilize it correctly as to okay, hey, we're playing on a bit of a smaller map here. I'm not gonna want to utilize some of these abilities that take a while to cast or hang around. I want something pretty immediate. Whereas medium and large fields, I think positioning and everything like that is a little bit. I think it's a little bit more lax on you. You have a little bit more time to really look around and go, okay, where am I gonna fit? Just being so, what's the word for it? Just being able to put yourself in different spots and really fit well there. Um, you have the time, and I think to me, you have the time and luxury to really take a step back and go, my team's kind of failing on this left flank, and let's go beef that up a little bit. Or
Mm-hmm.
hey, my team all around is doing pretty good. Let's take some of these pockets that I see and just apply a little bit more force here, a little bit more
Mm.
pressure, and really just change the field on medium and large fields, I think.
Yeah, it's. I think it comes down to like communication basis of moving troops takes so long. If you're trying to get
Yes,
10 people to move in one direction, it takes a million times longer than it takes to get two people. And that could be the same percentage of your team based on different field sizes. Like if
exactly.
you're 10% of your stick, you can get 10% of your stick to the front line now because it's you. If you got
Yes.
1,000 people on the field, 10% is 100. You're not getting those people to the front of the field anytime soon. You are you are waiting 5 minutes for those people to be like, oh, we gotta go right over there.
Let
Okay.
me throw my armor on again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now you played in GP and CK, and
Yes.
uh, they have quite different styles from what I've been told of their events and their fighting style. They're like event battle games.
I would have to say GP is a lot more at least class based fighting.
Okay.
You don't really get a lot of the stick fighting in there. Where there are some people that yeah rock the stick all the time, great, but it's a lot more class and depth.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from both kingdoms, you have to it's really changed my play style to where I have to focus around. Okay, I got to watch this. I got to watch this barbarian. I've got to watch this wizard. What are their
Mm-hmm.
abilities? What that wizard take? What's it gonna do? Versus in CK, it's a little bit more stick heavy. So
Yeah.
pretty much, it's what I see is what I get. Okay, I got a guy coming at me flow. All right, at this
Mm-hmm.
point, it's do I know this person? Is he good with flow? Should I stay back and just peg him with arrows the entire time?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think again, it's just reading the field and
Right.
seeing where you fit.
And then doing that research in that part.
Exactly.
If you're moving to a new kingdom, you got to learn those players. I mean, if you're in GP, you've got. Oh, now I'm spacing on GP major players right now. That's so terrible. I know if you go to CK and you're on the field and you see a short dude running around in leather armor, that's Diego, and he's gonna wreck you something fierce because that's what's gonna happen. But if you're like up in Polaris and you see uh, somebody in no armor with a really sick tunic running at you, looks like he's in his 40s, that's PTQ, and he's also gonna wreck your shit. But you gotta just know the difference between those two people and what you can do, and just recognizing, I mean, stick skill, battle skill, everything. Learning those players is gonna be
Yeah.
leaps and bounds above what you're are going to be able to do before that, tactically and strategically.
I think it goes back to what you said. It is a lot of communication. Uh, being new or being old on the field, everyone's been there where you're sitting there waiting for the game to, be laid on, and people will tell you, "Hey, watch out for that guy. He's really good," or "Watch out for this person."
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of information just by communicating before the game even starts.
Yeah,
So,
and those big inner kingdom like Spring War gets a lot of attention.
oh yeah,
Keep on the Borderlands has got a lot of people, and I mean, even if you travel a whole ton, you're not going to know everybody. So ask people from that
exactly.
kingdom. I mean, I'd say ask people from their kingdom, but it's really hard to tell when everyone's just wearing like fighting company colors, and you're like,
Yeah.
crap, everyone is a Saracen. Where are you from? um, I lost my train of thought. It just exploded. Scout
I
fit on
believe
the
in you.
battlefield. Do you believe in me? That's good. Targan, can you tell us where Scout fits on the battlefield, for your opinion?
So y'all hit it really good. I've always been a little bit more of a defensive fighter, except for the case of small and medium fields where I like to play a game called Bounty Hunter.
Mm.
You guys have all tapped on it really nicely of, hey, I need to get this armor breaking enchant so I can go after that guy. Or, hey, there's a really annoying bard eyeing the crap out of everybody. Luckily, I've got an adaptive blessing here to go charge that sucker down quick. Hopefully they use off. But it's one of the fun things to do on the small and medium fields. You see a problem, identify it, get help if you need it, otherwise charge it down. In the large scale games, I find myself more sitting back, either where the objective is or sitting more towards where our targets are, or more squishier targets. Kind of doing, I dubbed it Overwatch. I don't know what the heck I actually call it. But basically, when I hear teleport or insubstantial on the left or something like that, sprinting that direction to go get that guy, just trying to hold back the home defense here.
Right.
That's more my game.
It's like the midfield play. It's kind of where I think I've found most support casters that aren't about rezzing rely, like the support bards, support healers. Every once in a while, you got to support druid. Those people are running around that middle field area that's not in the first or second line, but isn't quite back at respawn yet. Just making the best of their abilities and what they can and can't do, and making sure that everyone stays, 100% ready to go on top of it. No one's getting flanked. Super important.
Yeah, it's very important.
Tracking is such a good spell. I just I want it as a bard every once in a while. I'm like, I got a G release someone that is so much more work. I don't want to do that. It's a larger spell. I only have a limited amount of them. No. You guys get tracking and you can sprint after them at top speeds without using ambulance. It's unfair.
I mean, I could say ambulance to make you feel better.
No. It's already there. It's a good ability. I like tracking. It is. Just versatility of the scout class is just outrageous. Which is what we're going to talk about next. Scout is one of the most versatile classes on the field, but it runs into the problem of being you overgeneralize yourself. So how do you guys not fall into that trap? Let's start with Snow.
I think it's all about how you make. I think it's all about how you mix it up. Honestly, whether I mean, you definitely don't want people looking at you and going, okay, this is he rocks bow all the time. This is what's gonna happen. This is how he's gonna play. I think instead of falling into that, I think change it up. Maybe you want to go out there flow. Maybe you want to go out there sword and board. Change it up and see how it works. Maybe you're just giving yourself practice, seeing how it works. Doing it that way just changes up the whole field, because then your opponents on that side are like, whoa, well, hey, he's not rocking a bow. How is he going to do this round? I think that's how you don't fall into that, is by constantly changing it up, constantly changing up your the way you would do spells and everything like that. How you sit on the field, even hey, you might go left the entire time when Leon's called. Go right, go straight down the middle, head for the front lines.
Change up B. I mean, you could even throw some feints in there, like bring the bow to the field and then put it down right away. Oh my god!
Exactly.
We playing mind games on warlord levels here. Let's go.
I've definitely done that. It's quite hilarious to see what the reaction of the other team is too.
That would be fantastic. Watch the entire team load up on Pro Proj, and then you're like, sticks.
It's really funny because I normally run crossbow. It's just a preference. So I'll go out there, I'll start walking, and then I just literally just drop it and go flow, and just watch all their faces sink because now they know that, oh, he's coming at me, and now I'll be 20 feet within range to do that extraordinary dispel magic
Mhm.
while holding both my swords. It's so funny.
You got the versatility, use it. Arduin, how do you avoid falling into the trap of being too generalized?
Well, learning other classes is a big thing because you gotta you gotta try and work around that. Like sometimes I forced myself to do specific specific jobs on the field. Like I'd just say, okay, I'm gonna run support for this game, or I'm gonna do only flanking for this game,
Mhm.
and like learning where those are useful, or learning where they're not as useful, but you can still pull it off.
Mm.
Like that's really helpful. Like just trying different things because you can walk onto field with two swords, a long sword, a shield, a bow, and half a dozen throwies, but that doesn't mean you have to use all of them in that game.
Very true. You bring the arsenal, use what you want.
Mhm.
It's God, I wish that was available for. I play caster so often, I have to pick and choose my weapons, and I'm like, I get a sword and the shield, and zip. This is my whole thing. And I look at the
And the
melee
yellow people.
classes. Yeah, melee classes walking out there with a garbage bag worth of weapons, and just like, all right, this is what I got today. It's like, darn it, could have a pole arm. um, yeah. So the generalization, it sounds like so far we've been. It's a lot about where you're on the field and your equipment you choose to bring. Um, are there any abilities that, or styles of using abilities that are more uh, either not necessarily non-intuitive, but like different or kind of from left field that people never normally don't expect you guys to use? Is that something that you guys have tried or practiced on in the past? Just for anybody to answer. We're just like open discussion at this point.
Oh, okay.
So,
I
yeah,
find it. I find it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Argon.
I have a friend who's actually going for Paragon Assassin, and what I've been doing, well, not lately, obviously,
Yeah, COVID.
but yeah, when we were on field, I was trying to track him out of blink behind the enemy line because people just completely forget that that exists. Like you can
Oh,
track your teammates and or
It's what I had for
tracking
Rack and Tactic as well. I call it the
the
assassin bomb
yeah or
because no one
tracking
expects them. Yeah, because no one expects them to come out because they're 10 feet within range.
yeah.
Yeah, and then
mm,
you just track them.
Don't forget yourself.
I was about to
yeah
say too, tracking
Yeah.
yourself out of Shadowstep is hilarious
Or if you're
yeah
being teleported, you want to drop out early.
for sure.
Dang.
yeah and tracking bards when they use Song of I
Survival.
forget the yeah
Or
Song of
visit.
Survival
Either one.
Yeah.
yeah
Don't use Saga Visit, by the way. If any bars listening, don't you just don't. It's not good. Song of
It
Survival
used
gives
to
you.
be.
It used to be, so I'm gonna put this in here. They used to have a long paragraph explain how it worked, and then we found out that basically that meant you could just run behind enemy lines, drop your weapons, Song of Survival, and then start like finish it, and then start walking back, basically immune to everything. Um, and then you could pull yourself out of it, which was hysterical and amazing because it was just a backstabbing thing. They rewrote it to change it so you are immune to everything that's not yourself, or you're immune to yourself, but everybody else can basically mess with you as long as it can affect it substantial. And it really changed the way that thing works. So do it with Song of Survival instead. Just run behind enemy lines, get stabbed, and then start walking back. Pop yourself out using anything, and now you're behind enemy lines. You guys could do that with tracking and to other people.
Yep.
You've got the teleports. You've got a kill with tracking using gummies and ummies, which is super funny. Um, Anybody teleporting, you can chase them down and get that blink thing. I had never thought of that. Legitimately, never thought to tracking a blinket assassin out that's on your team so he can backstab someone immediately. That's hysterical.
It's even better if you don't use a name, you just use the 2 descriptors, because then the people are looking at themselves like, who's wearing that?
They didn't look behind them. Yeah, it's so funny.
Who's wearing red and black? I'm in green. Oh, damn.
Yeah. Tap tap. Oh crap.
Did not think of that. That is amazing. Okay. I'm continuing this question. Are there other really ingenious ways to use your abilities that people don't think about? Or I'll open this up as well. Are there any old abilities that were super fun and ingenious to use? Because thinking about different ways to do things or old ways to do things can make you think of new ways.
I mean, we ain't got no traps anymore.
You got a whole person. That was the trade-off. That was the weird, awkward trade-off. Turned your traps into hold person. I mean, it turned assassins and scouts trap into hold person, and then it got weaker. But
I'm a V8 through and through, so I'm gonna need a little bit more explanation here. Traps were the ones that you could set before the game, right? Or was it during the game?
It's during.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, during.
Yeah, it was literally just like a loop of cloths.
Oh.
If they stepped in it, they had to they had to attack the damn loop for 10.
Jesus, that's hilarious.
there are some cool, ridiculous things in V6 and 7 for scouts and assassins that are just gone because we didn't want to deal with field obstacles.
Yeah. You had camouflage, earthbind, antidote to poison.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot about antidote to poison.
Yeah.
I don't poison was. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I just remember starting and I was like, man, antidote to poison, how do I do that? And my explanation was, you got a water bottle? Yeah. Just take a drink out of it. That's it. I was like, really? Yeah. I was like, whoa. All right, that's easy.
You just always have a water bottle.
Yeah. Just always had a water bottle. Oh, you had truth? Truth was.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah.
That was our
mostly Bard and Assassin in V7, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, truth was the our interrupting for casting back in the day.
Oh.
Yeah, so you could was it truth? Fire truck have 9 letters, and at the time you had to get a yes or a no, but it had to be true. Then they changed it so you could just satisfy with a nod or a head shake.
Oh, okay.
But essentially froze you until you could answer yes or no. So depending on your yes or no questions, you could freeze somebody up pretty good.
I like that.
Just
sounds
start telling them riddles.
Yeah, pretty much.
That sounds a lot like Charm from the Bard. Of just like you have to make a rhyme that makes them do something, and it's like these are some ridiculous things. God, I did not know about truth. I did not remember truth. I read the V6 and 7 rulebooks, and they're something else. They're not V8. Mm-hmm. They're definitely a different style of game, but the mentality coming from V7 to V6 or V6 to V7 and then from V7 to V8, there are some interesting things that were carried over and some interesting mindsets and tactics that people either latched onto and didn't let go of, like the fact that barbarian should be warrior counter to warrior, where that's not true in V8 at all. And other things like the scout is the woodsy thing, kind of, because you had all these nature-based abilities, and that's why all your abilities are extraordinaries, because none of them were actual magic in V7. Mm-hmm. They were all just like, I got a stick, I'm fixing my weapon. I got a new weapon. It's just ridiculous, cool stuff. Okay. Back on track for the versatility. Because I got blown away by tracking a blinked assassin on your own team. I like it. I'm going to so use that when I play Scout next time. Or Assassin. I'm going to have someone else do that. I love it. Torgia, what are some things you do to not fall into that trap of being overgeneralized?
Well, they all ruined the tracking surprise. No, I'm just kidding. Research. Look at the rulebook. Learn abilities, learn the enchantments, learn the classes. Do your homework. Our class is all about preparation. We do not do very well against surprise situations, but that's a different conversation for later. Otherwise, we are just a lightly armored speed bump in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
Preparation is key. If you can prepare for it, you're probably going to wind up good on the other side. But yeah, just research things. That's all I got.
Storm?
Learn your states.
Yeah. Oh God, learn your states.
That's something everyone should do.
Yes.
Just learn your
Correct.
states.
Please.
Mm-hmm. Also, learn what states, especially for you guys that have release, learn the states you can affect with touch release on an offensive level. Because there's nothing funnier than having 4 people surround a warrior and 6 points of armor, and then release him by touch casting and just whittle his armor to 0 in 2 seconds. Because everyone's just drum rolling. Because you don't need an open hand for that. It's just unfair. Ridiculous. Storm, what's something you do to not generalize yourself?
We kind of touched on all of it. Not relying on one type of weapon set is a big thing because you have such a vast versatility of weapons that you can change it up however you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know we did talk about how enchantments can kind of be a crutch, but they can also it's a double-edged sword. Like they can either hinder you because if that druid is paying attention or if that wizard is paying attention, you're not going to have that enchantment very long, right? But like we were talking about before, it makes you be able to knock down a warrior very easily if you prepared early enough and know what you're doing with it. That's everyone else touched on everything. So
I mean, there's 4 of you, and it's a lot of it is going to be similar. I mean, a lot of through all the Paragon Path episodes, a lot of the stuff we talk about is hit on over and over and over again. It just emphasizes the fact that, like, you got to learn tactics, you got to learn everybody else's classes, you got to learn how to deal with certain states and situations. Like, learning and knowing how to get in and out of situations that are problematic. Preparation is a giant, huge thing that will help you in every class, and it definitely helps more in the class that has 4 utility spells that most other classes can't overlap with. I think healer is one of the only ones that can overlap with your guys' level of utility spells. Because DMAG,
druids have all of them too, except for tracking.
they don't have the tracking thing.
Yeah.
They have release. They don't have G release though, which is what the
Yeah.
caster counter. The
Right, it's
caster
why you
symbol
said
is.
healer. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes it tricky. But those guys can't wear. Well, druids can kind of wear armor, but 3 points of physical armor is 3 points that comes back with you every single time you respawn. So it's a lot longer term than any magic armor.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for the refresh to get it back.
Yes. Depending if you have.
But why play Build a Scout?
Yeah. What's that?
Why play Build a Scout when you can just be a scout?
Be a scout, yeah.
It's like I was a scout and now I'm a monk with less abilities. Why? I ran out of enchantments. It happens.
Scout came by.
Drive by DMAGs. Great stuff. All right, so recommended tactics, target acquisition, both offensively and defensively. You guys have got the releases, you got a heal, you've got tracking, which we've now proven to me and everyone else that it is offensive and defensive. What are your recommended tactics, either in general or for target acquisition? Let's start with I'm fumbling your name, Arduin.
Offensively, I like to kind of pick a target, because if you know your park well enough, you can say, okay, that wizard is going to cause a lot of trouble, so I'm gonna chase him around and threaten dispel magic or hold person or something that he's really going to try and avoid. And that's a really big thing for me for offensive, is like, no. And even if you don't, like, if I travel and I don't know any of the players that are on the field, I'll still say, okay, well, that wizard looks like he's going to cause a lot more trouble than that 14-year-old barbarian or something. Like you can usually assume, and like with the caster classes, like you can usually say, okay, I have dispel magic, I have hold person, I have shield, and I have adaptive blessing. So you can kind of find something to work on them at least. Defensively, um, use adaptive blessing, and again, that's knowing the other classes, because if you if you walk onto field and there's a druid, you need to weigh your options of whether you want to dispel magic for sorcery or I forgot the word now. Entangle balls, ice
Oh,
balls.
Subdual.
subdual.
Subdual, yes.
You want to tank
Yeah,
that
you gotta
subdual
weigh.
ball.
Yeah,
That would
like
work.
you got to weigh your options, because you also have Shadowstep.
Mhm.
You can kind of screw them out of that way. But defensively, it's I think it's more important defensively to know who you're up against
Mhm.
and pick your battles, because you can use Shadowstep defensively. You can use it offensively after you've used it defensively. Hold person, you can use it defensively if you really need to. Um, yeah, just knowing the other classes, like that's a lot of what it comes down to for me, really.
Preparation and research. It always helps. Every
Hmm.
time. Um, I had not thought about adaptive blessing to just take out. I always forget about adaptive blessing for some reason. That it's just a fantastic way to ignore that one time use, or that short, quick use that someone else is using on you. If I know the annoying thing that happened, I believe this was at Wolfheim Torgen, which is Torgen's pet for
Probably.
anyone's else information. Um, Broton and Balder, who have both been on the episodes, and myself were all on the same team, and we were just a lot of command. There was a lot of command going around, and I charged somebody that had adaptive blessing and did not realize it. Like I cast the awe, they said resistant, and then stabbed me. Wasn't ready for that one, but it worked super well.
Hmm.
Um, and that goes back to picking and choosing like what the other team is using, preparation of knowing what they can use, and then utilizing your ability. I mean, it's once per life. You die, you get it back, or you go to a bard and get an empower or a restoration, and then
Yep.
keep going. Talking about Wolfheim, Dorian, what are your recommended tactics?
Uh, as everyone's going to say, it's whatever you can prepare for. If you have the ability to work with other people to get something done, then you can almost take on anything. Um, for example, again, back at Wolfheim, we have an annoying bard,
Mm-hmm.
so I enjoy taking him down, and it doesn't work all the time. But sometimes you're like, hey, I have a bow on my side. Watch where I'm going. I'm gonna see if I can turn some people's backs to you. Just watch. All you gotta do is get them go around the tree in the right direction, and you got them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, don't be afraid to work with people. No lone wolf
Teamwork makes
stuff.
the dream work. It works every single time. Like there is no class in the game that works better by itself, including barbarian. There's no class that works better by itself than with another person. It's just the game is based on teamwork. Even basic teamwork tactics are going to make it so much easier to get kills, to get the objective, to do what you need to do to win, or just get better.
What was it that Teflon always said? Objective, objective, objective.
Yes, it is about the objective, but also, as we'll get to later, making sure you also get better but not ruin people's fun. But we'll get to that one later because that's our one of my favorite
Yeah.
questions. Um, my train of thought is just all over today. All right, I needed more coffee this morning, and it is 7 o'clock.
It's Saturday, Merrick.
Which one? That one or that one?
Snow, what is some recommended tactics?
Uh, Honestly, one that's worked for me just throughout the years I've been playing is I will as I'm playing with a bow and I'm approaching that line in a game, I will take a couple throwies and just throw them straight up into the air and just peg people as they look up. They always look up. I, I don't know what it is. It just never
It
fails.
works better than it should.
It does, and it shocks me even after all these years how many people just look straight up.
They don't learn.
So amp guarders
But
are cats. We just throw something in the air and we go, ooh.
Guys,
It
it's
helps that they're
foam. Take
shiny.
it.
there
It's
you go.
foam. Take it in the head. It won't count.
I would definitely have to say that for sure. Definitely try it out there if you're listening. Definitely try it. It works wonders. But other than that, I definitely have to say offensively. Other than that, it's by now you've probably seen what classes are along the line of heavy hitters or really good support classes out there, and it's really making sure that you go, okay, that is my target, and trying to eliminate that target is going to be offensively helping your team in the long run. Defensively, I would have to say it's almost the exact same thing. I mean, taking out those heavy key players is going to be, playing defensively. You want your team to survive, you want them to live, which all boils down to, preparation and knowing where you are on the field, and just going from there.
Yeah, I mean, if you know where you're at, where the weak spots at, or where their
Exactly.
strong spots are, I mean, if Delos and the Torches are on the field, you know the left flank is gonna fall. It's gonna happen. That is their favorite spot. They want it. Put a little extra defense there. Throw some wizards at them. They might not know what to do when they're all standing there posted because they've all been wounded by one leg. Be a battle. I mean, so that is another thing the scout has that I think people forget about is because you have a lot of utility and a range weapon variety, you can kind of stand back and be that battle commander. You've got that moment of peace to take shots, to throw those throwies. You see things happening, you can fix some of them, or you know who to get to fix some of them because you've done your research, you've done your preparation, you know what is going on, and you're like, there are 3 wizards running with ice balls at our left flank. Let's go get some barbarians on that side. Ignore the ice balls, run through. Easy enough. Storm.
So I have a little bit of a system that I use, particularly for small and medium games. Large games it won't work, and you'll see why. But the first thing I do is I before even the game is called, like Leon is called, I'm looking at the other team and I'm seeing what sashes they're wearing, and what players that I recognize, what I don't recognize, and figuring out a game plan from there. If I see a druid and they have just an ungodly amount of spell strips just hanging off them, chances are they're playing summoner.
Yeah.
And you can kind of, when layoff Elan is called, chances are they're going to be enchanting a few of those people off the bat, depending on what they're giving, right? So watching what happens there, and where they go, I can now utilize my Dispel Magic for those 3 people, right? Well, one of the 3 people. Like I was saying before, looking at the other field, if I see a lot of bows on the field on their team, chances are I'm going to be playing Sword and Board that day, so I can block some of that. If I don't see a lot of that, I can exploit that weakness of no range and pick up my bow or crossbow or whatever, right? You can kind of guess what the game plan is going to be before the game is even started. So you doing that is very beneficial, and that's why I was saying it doesn't work well for large games, because then you have 100 people to look at, and it's just not going to work.
I mean, it works to a point, but you have to have such a broader knowledge of what like fighting companies and what groups of kingdoms do and tendencies, and that is a lot of research.
That's a lot of information to do before you even get on the field.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
I.
But you can focus in on it. So
Right.
like, if you, like I was saying, on large games, chances are I'm going to flank. So looking at both corners and just seeing what those, let's say 30 people on that one side, what do they have? Am I going to be effective over there? If not, look on the other side. What do they have there? If they have less utility that's going to mess up your day, go that way, right? So you can kind of use that tactic, but it's much more easier to use on small medium.
Right, where you know everybody, or you can kind of
And
boil down
you
what they're
know most of
doing.
them, and you can kind of,
Yeah.
like I said, looking at if I see a druid with just a shit ton of spell strips, they're either going to be one of two things, and my dispel magic will work on both of them.
Yeah.
So just know it. Like if it basically just depends. Like Leon's called, and I see them touching someone else. Okay, now I know they're summoner, and I'm going to follow the guy that they're just touching, right? If Leon is called and they have their hand on their shoulder or something, that cool, I'm following that druid.
Yeah, you can determine what they're doing based on the actions that they're performing, even if you're not hearing it. I know that's a pretty common. It was meta for a while in Phoenix League. Was as soon as that bard or that wizard got on the field, they were sprinting and casting extension break con or extension insult on the druid or the healer to try to get them to stop from casting on their intended targets. Um, it doesn't work super well in a large field because I don't think anyone can sprint 200 yards in like 4 seconds. So if you're out there, message me. On small fields, though, it can kind of work the same way. You see a target, you gotta zoom in on it, and maybe even like just casting something stupid at, like a hold person, just to set them off for a second, might work. Also, hold person and arrows is just it's a mean combination that works very well. Um, okay, so we got target acquisition offensively and defensively. You guys don't have a ton of abilities. Like you get new abilities every single time, unlike the barbarian who gets like the same ability twice. He just gets more uses of it for whatever reason. Um, but are there any hidden gem abilities that you guys find are like people do not use correctly or they sleep on it or something like that? Is there one of those abilities that is in this list of abilities that you guys have? Because we've gone over we've gone over all of the abilities so far. We've talked about them at least once. Are there any of them that are, and we're just group on this one, is there any ability that is slept on?
Shadowstep.
Shadowstep?
Shadowstep is a get out of jail free card that a lot of people forget that they have, and you can charge your abilities in it with relative safety, and a lot of people don't, and just forget that they can still charge, and it infuriates me.
I mean,
Dispel magic we went over too. It's another big one that either people are not afraid of it enough, and you can just wreck a field, or they are afraid of it, in which case we were talking about it before. Bluff casting that is now a shove, and it works so well.
it's we'll have an episode later that I'm working the details out on about specifically just like things you can do casting wise to be better, and bluff casting is one of those focus points because if you have a spell like DMAG that everyone besides barbarians is afraid of, that is such a powerful spell. Like people are more afraid of DMAG than they are of stun, and stun is a guaranteed kill. But people are more scared of that DMAG because they feel powerless when they lose all of the fancy strips that they were just given by the druid 30 seconds ago. Like, it's such a good spell. And you guys have it. So I think this is a good spot to talk about the potential change coming up at Gathering of the Crowns, which, for those that don't know, we're officially changing the name of Gathering of Clans to Gathering of Crowns because it sounds better than saying Gathering of Clans. It's just a thing we have to admit.
We're all kingdoms, not the horde.
Yes. So the proposal is very simple. DMAG becomes recharge times 10. How do y'all feel about that? Like
Step in the right direction.
a step in the right direction.
I got no argument online about this. It's a it's glad to be thought of, but it should be charge 3.
It should
That's
be.
my opinion.
So why? So you're skipping 10 or 5 entirely, going from the 10 to the
I
3.
mean, 5 would be better, but I think 3. The fact that the conversation I had with a person was, I think it should be charge 3 because wizards just get that innately,
Yeah.
and they also get battle mage with that, meaning that they can run and cast with a demag that they can just charge all the time, right? And then we have the flip of that being with it being extraordinary.
True.
So it's kind of comparable in my eyes to that. And with martial classes already being so underpowered, I think that is fair, right? Their argument to it was that the fact that we have, a variety of weapons, we have armor and stuff like that. Yeah, and wizards can ignore that.
Kind of.
To an extent. Yeah, exactly. It's literally a point and click pyrotechnics. They literally have removed everything, unless you have your. No, actually, even then, adaptive blessing doesn't protect your equipment. So
Nope. It doesn't destroy your throwaways because throwaways are immune to being destroyed. So
right.
do that.
Cool.
I
No,
don't
there's the one.
My point being is that it's a good step because we've been wanting it a long time, but I think charge 3 I understand it might be very powerful, but the fact that scout is already underpowered to some people, I think it's fair.
So I think the counter argument that comes up is that if you make anything chargeable in large battle games, it means it's infinite. Regardless of how much it's charging. I mean, technically there's a charge times 20 out there for Shadowstep on Void Touch.
We can still only hold one.
That's true. That
It
is
still
true.
takes you out of the game.
Exactly.
You
The
get
the
it
fact
back.
that wizards and druids and healers can take as many dispels as they have spell points, and we only get 1. I think it's fair that it's charge 3.
Make it that fast turnaround.
Right. And the argument I saw with the charge 10 for the charge 10 again was that it's comparable to experienced for druids, because then it makes their dispel magic charge 10. But again, it's the same thing. They can experience it, but they also have innate, which means that they can just charge it with a snap of their finger, and they can take as many dispel magics as they want. Again,
Right. I
Looking
mean,
at you, naturalized magic.
and naturalized magic, yeah.
Natmag. I mean, it still falls under that kind of. Okay, you can have X amount per either life or refresh, depending on which caster you are, and per refresh, as soon as you get down to 0, you can only have up to 1 because that's the way charge works. But you guys are always stuck at 1 no matter what because 1 is what you start with. Yeah, the extraordinary doesn't quite make up for that whole problem.
You still have to keep your feet. Like the benefit is that if I get rushed by an AON druid, I can now counter that while still fighting them.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but it's not a unlimited ambulant dispel that you can just have all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's fair to give it a charge 3. That's just my opinion.
Any other takes on it?
No.
I mean, from what I've heard, it sounds like it'll probably pass. A lot of people are asking for this kind of change, for a boost or buff to Scout. I don't know if it's enough of a boost, because if we're trying to get everything up to the same level of efficiency, there's very few classes besides Druid and Warrior that really have this, like, synergy within themselves to be super effective. And if we're trying to get everyone up to that level, Scout is one of the ones that definitely needs some more synergy within itself to push past that.
It's a good step. I just think it should be a bigger step. That's all.
I mean, it could get approved, and then next year it could be, hey, we wanted to make it a 5 or a 3 or a 2, and make it better. Okay, so we had the hidden gems. We had the adding question of this new potential change. Um, what are some things that you guys want to focus on to get better? Some skills or anything like that that you want to work on either in or out of the game to get better at and make Scout really shine. Let's start with Arduin on this one.
Bow usage. Like I didn't use a bow for a long time. So and like picking your perfect target with a bow, that's something that I feel like most people who don't play Archer need to work on all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say that's one of the biggest things, like other than casting speed and like being able to understand what you're saying when you're casting is usually a little important as well.
Enunciation.
Yeah.
Do those tongue twisters like actors do at the beginning. The what are the teeth, the tongue, the teeth, the tip of the I don't know. It's something like that. Whatever. They've got a tongue twister. They say it works. Just believe me, you've seen it. I mean, so Jamie, who is also a Paragon, sorry, Sir Warlord, Death Lily, Sunshine, Megatron, something, 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 is a Paragon, bunch of stuff, but he's also a Paragon archer, and his opinion on most archers in general, not just the class, but people aren't good. Um, like they just can't shoot people. They're not very good at it. So if you get good at it, use that because people aren't expecting to get shot from 45 feet away while sprinting. Like, pull that off. It looks amazing every time. Going to an experienced archer, Snow, what's your what's things that you said to get better at?
Yeah, definitely. I would have to say, depending on the skill set you're comfortable with out in the field, there's nothing more. I mean, definitely practicing up on that, staying up to snuff on what you're comfortable with out there.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as getting better, I would have to say for me, just some of the changes, especially that I've seen from back then till now, it's definitely for me, it's learning my states, learning how the spells work and interact with other spells that I have. Um, when to use them and stuff like that. I think that's what I think you know I and other people should really work on is at least that's what the biggest thing that gives me trouble is learning when to utilize my abilities and not relying on the bow so much.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a lot of work to go from, especially such a drastic change of V77 to V8. You've got a whole style of play in your head, and then you got to
Yeah.
scrap 90% of it and switch.
Yeah.
That's a pretty drastic change to look at. Luckily, the stick skills pretty much carry over always. So
Oh yeah.
got that. The interacting spells is probably, I think, one of the most tedious things I've ever researched in my life. Like, I did anthropology classes for 2 years in a row, and they were less tedious than studying the interactions between like different things in AmpGuard. I really love AmpGuard and very much enjoy doing it, but it's so tedious. There's a lot of weird details in there, and you've got to really want it.
Says the guy that read every Corpora. Oh
I'm
my
not
god.
finished yet. I'm only halfway done.
Talk about tedious.
That's politics. That's different. And that's different. There are some bad ones out there, but there's some great ones as well. So, if you like studying, study, because it makes it easier when you understand that somebody getting hit with an ice ball is 60 seconds and you want them out now. When someone says does the break con spell at someone else, it's 10 seconds. They can survive for 10 seconds. You don't need to release them to, get them out for a 4-second time period. Yeah, knowing your abilities, knowing others' abilities. We've hit on that a couple times. Torgan, what are some things you want to focus on to get better?
Hey, this has been said in a couple of chats. Getting out of tunnel vision, even I find myself doing tunnel vision sometimes. getting more of a spatial awareness, especially if I'm playing defensive as opposed to offensive.
Mhm.
And basically getting my voice out there just a touch more for when it comes to rallying folks to a point or to a objective, because there's nothing like standing here going, that flag could be taken right now. Everyone's killing each other in midfield. Huh.
Get
Someone
that.
better go do something about that.
Yeah.
Hey,
I wonder where that person is.
be real nice.
Just
And of course, Bo.
yeah.
Always Bo.
I've talked to a couple cross gamers, and amp guarders are by far uh, the worst with bows. It might be because we also have a bunch of rules around them that are like about safety more than anything. Like the headshot thing for Dag and Bell definitely makes more people want to shoot people in the heads with the bow. Where we're like, don't do that. Our arrows aren't meant for that kind of combat.
I think the speed has something to do with that as well.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, our game is so much faster. We don't have weight requirements on weapons. Our hit calibration is so much lighter, so our strikes are wickedly fast. So
Our arrows aren't pillows.
they're not stop signs attached to a
Yeah.
stick that goes.
Yeah, so much drag.
Yeah.
I mean, you get a good arrow, which the Archer episode talks about some different options, but the spherical
gamma ball.
tip, the gamma ball on that tip,
Yeah.
spherical tip on that thing, they fly super well. They bounce really nice, and they're
I don't have any of my stuff within reach.
no, I don't know flat tops because I was lazy and just bought them, and they hit like a truck though because they're just like 5 layers of 4-pound foam, and then a soft PVC plastic extrusion that holds them, and then there's a screw that attaches it to the shaft. They're not super accurate, but you feel them through armor, and that's what I want. I am bad with a bow. That is my. I have a bow because Q-Bolt taught me to buy it. But Q-Bolt told me to buy it. There we go. That's a statement I can say. Um, getting better with a bow, getting better with raising your voice, getting better with taking the initiative to make people move, get that tunnel vision out. It's I don't have a good way to get better at tunnel vision besides just try to focus on one more thing this practice than you did last practice. Like if you always focus on one person, try to include another person in that tunnel and think about your next move, not just your first move, and you'll slowly start expanding it to the point that you're not just looking at who you're shooting at or who you're fighting, but you're looking at who's next to you. Um,
It's
Actually,
learning to be,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's learning to be proactive as opposed to reactive.
yes, that's a better way to say it.
And on that point of working on tunnel vision, I find what helped me was um, take like 30 seconds to just look at the field.
Mhm.
Like before you start to even small field, I know there's not a lot of people and you have to help your friends, but like just take a minute and see where everyone's moving, and then with that knowledge, go fight that one-on-one that you want to do, knowing on that side that they might be moving in a certain direction. It helps a lot. Even when you are tunnel visioning, at least it's in your head that they're there.
Mm-hmm. It's a good thought process to open it up, and it's
Yeah.
I think something that Scout has that is an advantage is the thought process shift of going from melee tunnel vision to range tunnel vision is very different. You're not picking the same targets anymore because if you're going to stick fight someone, you're looking for certain aspects. If you're going to shoot someone, you're looking for different aspects. And if you can actively switch back and forth between those ideas, you're going to open up your range and find more options for you to do things. Plus, if you're already shooting a bow, you're probably not on the front line. If you are, good luck. You you are going hard, and I don't know how you do it if you're on the front line shooting bows and arrows. But that shifting a little bit and changing your thought process just a little bit at a time helps. skills to focus on to get better. Who did I miss? I missed somebody.
Me again.
Storm. You've been talking
I
the whole
talk
time.
I talk too much, and then you just forget that I didn't talk about the topic.
No, you're not talking too much. I'm just forgetting you're talking about the topic. I had a little mark sheet so I could mark it off, and I didn't make one today.
All good.
Mm.
On the actually the point of what you were saying about the bow and the melee,
Mhm.
that's something to get better as well as knowing the difference between a bow target and a sword target.
Mhm.
I am not going to waste an arrow on a warrior. I will waste that arrow on a wizard. It's more effective, right?
Ping.
Yeah.
1 point.
Yeah, it's like cool. I did my part, I think, unless they kill someone in scavenge. But my point is that, like, if I see a wizard and they don't have that little white strip on them, that's a free target. I'm going for that free target.
I mean, you can even take a page from Hogman's book of his hunter-killer druid list.
Yeah.
It's basically a scout with more D-mags. You've got a
Yep.
bow, you see someone with magical armor, you D-mag the armor, and then you shoot him with the bow. Done.
Yeah. The only problem with it is that it is extraordinary, meaning that you can have that shit drawn,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool, but you can't move your feet.
No.
So if they start running, then it's
Just
still a
get-
shove, I guess.
Just get better at casting, or not casting. Get better at shooting, and make sure they're in your range when you cast the D-mag.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This was the focus on to get better, right?
Yeah.
Charging can't is going to be your best friend. Learn it and learn how to do it fast. And it will help what you can do on the field immensely.
Mm-hmm. What I've seen that has been really impressive with the charging can is when you can fit 2 charging cans in one breath. Wow. It's pretty fantastic when it's like, all right, I got something charged basically. Holy shit. All right, go. Cool. Great. If I've got a song of power going, that's like most people's incants are done at 2 because it's a charge times. If it's a charge times 3, it's a 1. If it's a 5, it's a 2. If it's a 10, it's a 5. So don't bother. I got a confidence. But if you can get it down to like under 5 seconds or 4 seconds, just you're not spending any time off the field. You are doing something, getting it back, keep going. Unfortunately, it's not extraordinary. No, it is not extraordinary, and it is not magic, so you can't meta magic it. So it follows all the rules of an incant, but is not. It's one of those weird things again.
Yeah, it's kind of the problem with the scout is that it takes you out of the game a little bit, which is why you want to say it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, say it fast, learn it, say it fast.
Especially now if Dispel becomes charge times 10.
Yeah. Oh my God, say it fast.
If you've got a charge times 10, just go find your bard. Like, level 1, they get confidence. Confidence is so easy. It's always a charge times 5, and they can give you back that charge times 10 right away.
Yeah. And like back to that update again.
Yeah.
I can see the argument of why it shouldn't be what I think it should be because of the fact that bards exist.
I mean, bards break 90% of things when you introduce charge or make it a per life or whatever. We're just like, hey, you want infinite? I got you.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are one of the ones that really benefit from our restorations. You guys can just chew through all your abilities, come back, get a restoration, and you are back up 100% besides one ability. Like, damn. It's amazing. It's good. What else did you have? Or was that it?
I have another, but it falls into the other question, so I'm just gonna wait.
Okay, so weaknesses to be aware of. We talked about things to get better at. We talked about hidden abilities, knowing your abilities, tactics. There are things. Every class is weak to something. What is Scout weak to? Let's start with Storm.
Everything but assassin? No. Warrior is a big thing.
Now, is it because of the armor and the scavenge, or is it just the whole kit itself?
Mostly armor and scavenge.
Okay.
Just how they literally double your armor. You can like we were talking before, you can supplement it with enchantments,
Mhm.
but it is something that you need to be aware of, and you need to work with your team to overcome. Spellcasters are huge as well. Um, uh, Dispel Magic is a killer if you're running a full kit.
Mhm.
With your full enchantments is what I mean.
Mhm.
Even just the point and clicks, um, you need to be aware that those might happen, and it's going to set you off a little bit.
Mm.
It's a get you out of the game for a minute, and also get rid of your enchantments. So
Right. Now, with the potential that Paladin and Anti-Paladin are opening up, is the 4-point armor also a problem, or is that close enough to your point level that you think it's not going to be as big of a problem?
my opinion, I would say it's close enough that I could be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it really just depends on skill at that point, in my opinion.
Okay. Arduin, same question. Well, the first question, the weaknesses you need to be aware of, and then we can go into the second part of the other one.
Barbarians, like barbarians are a real problem, and warriors, like Storm said. Um, Dealing with warriors, like even with armor breaking, you still have to outstick them quite a bit, and you with barbarians, it's sometimes just not worth the risk of getting your armor broken. Like even if you know how to run up a pole and you're 90% sure you'll be fine, if they just break your leg armor because they tap you, like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a kind of sucks for you. Um, like bards are a big problem for me as well. Like I I can't really choose what to do with bards because you could adaptive blessing, command, or death, or this or that, or and like you're just kind of screwed either way because you could say I'm immune to command and then they'll just terrify you or something.
Yeah, we've got
And
options.
Actually,
yeah, so
Merrick and I were talking about that. Um, when I messaged you about the adaptive blessing, you have to
Mm-hmm.
say what your resistance is.
mhm.
You have to
And that
declare the enchantment.
technically you don't have to say
Yeah,
resistances,
you have to
but
declare the
Oh,
enchantment. You don't have to declare which school you chose.
Yep.
right. But
Technically.
most people do because of the fairness of the game.
Yeah.
Meaning
yeah.
that if I'm running up of a bard, they ask me to declare, and I say adaptive blessing command. Guess what? I'm getting terrored.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So for the resistance, it's almost a balancer for the resistance if you don't tell them what it is, because it's a one-time use. It's a you
Yep.
got the resistance, they can pop it off or they can choose to go around it by using a different spell, and that that I think is one that it's real fair to not say it. If you're immune, you've got to tell them in the middle of the, or I think you should tell them in the middle of the incant so they don't use the spell. But technically, you just don't have to tell them until afterwards, which is uh, technically the way to play. But
It's a matter of fairness and what your park will allow.
yeah, I mean, it also will come back to the how to get better, not ruin people's fun. But um, if you keep running around with various immunities and not telling anybody what they are until after they cast at you, it makes a lot of people unhappy and they don't want to keep playing. It also doesn't help them really because you've just delayed their mental process a little bit instead of letting them have the opportunity to get that mental process going a half second earlier. Like if you say uh, adaptive blessing command, their mind can start ticking real quick and be like, okay, not hold person, let's switch to shove, and just getting other people thinking on that as well.
Yeah, the argument can be made though of the catch and release tactic that we've mentioned quite a few on your
Mm-hmm.
podcast. The fact that you can remove someone an opponent out of frozen because they are technically willing
Yeah.
because they are frozen.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't know that, that also gets them mad. But it's part of the rules, right? It's the same with adaptive blessing protection. It doesn't say that you have to declare it. Technically, it's part of the rules.
Mm-hmm. It's
I still do it. I still tell people what school,
Right. And
Mhm.
but technically, yeah.
yeah, it falls a little bit under that having enchantment should never result in a surprise survival. That kind of covers it, but doesn't quite. Like, it doesn't outline, like, you have to say this. It just kind of says, shouldn't be a surprise survival, whatever that specifically means, mostly applying to magic armor of, like, 2 taps. Oh, I'm still alive. I
Point.
had an extra
Yeah.
point. Yeah, whatever. Arthur, you were saying, though.
Yeah, well, bards are the biggest thing because they have a counter to most everything depending on what they
Besides
take.
Paladin.
Because even yeah, no,
Two
I meant
spells.
I meant everything a scout has, but like they have Song of Deflection, Song of Battle, like they can no matter what they can usually do something to you, and that's one of our biggest weaknesses is like the caster classes and how versatile they can be. It's yeah, it's just kind of difficult. Like the 3 points of armor is nice, but sometimes I wish it was four just for like there are a lot of enchantments that give you armor breaking,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't realize that until everyone on the field can break your armor because they have a druid or something on their team.
Three
Yeah.
points is the same as 1 to a barbarian.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah. It's.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know what to do against a barbarian for you guys. Like,
Shadowstep.
get out of jail free. Let's go.
Yeah.
Um,
Throwies to legs will help.
oh. Okay.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
It
Because
depends on the armor, and chances are on someone that is wearing 3 points, they may not have full points on their legs because mobility. So it can help.
true.
I've I've made a lot of people mad for pegging kneecaps because they don't have armor on them. That's
Oh.
it's very fun, and it makes I just laugh and run away. It's my favorite thing. But
Nice. Whole person with just
yeah,
a bow.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Won't work in a barbarian, but yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's so the barbarian armor breaking with paladin and anti-paladin most likely opening up, if not this year, next year. um I think we're going to see a lot more ancestral armor, and you guys would be an amazing target for that. Besides, you don't have mend, which is the only downfall. Because if you guys could mend yourselves, just send a small army of scouts off to do everything. They can fix
I
anything.
wish we had men.
Yeah, bow gets broken,
Yeah.
fix it. Armor's down, fix it. It'd be ridiculous. Um, but if ancestral armor is more common on the field, I think scouts would be a great opportunity to use that, because now that barbarian becomes a lot less problematic. That warrior becomes closer, especially if you demag their AA. Now you have the advantage. You've got 3 points. They've got 3 point. They've got 6 points, but yours is ancestral, so you can also get rid of some of the spells and stuff like that.
And scouts get a little bit more buff in another way of having that dispel magic that can get rid of that stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had not thought about barbarian as one of the weaknesses for you guys, but it is really, you just got to outstick them, and that's not an answer a lot of the time. It's interesting.
Mhm.
Snow, what are some weaknesses to be aware of?
Honestly, I'm gonna have to piggyback on spellcasters. Just the versatility they have, and just not knowing what they're gonna take and everything on the field when you're running into them can be a pain.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I still managed to fall into the trap of, even just as long as I've been playing, is um, honestly, yeah, that tunnel vision we've talked about, getting too focused up on something or someone, and not realizing that the whole field is changing around you. And next thing you know, you're cut off from your whole team, and you're like, whoa, what happened? And it changes so fast. I think a big weakness is just experience. If you don't have the experience, jumping into the class for the first time, it's it's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's really fun, but it requires a level of experience to be able to be aware of your surroundings and not get too hyper focused in on something.
It's like Barbarian in that it's got a very easy entry level, but as soon as you start actually trying to be proficient at it, it's got a very high, steep climb to get actually good at.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Barbarian and Scout probably have like casters are a little wonky because you've got a weird spike at the beginning to figure out all the casting crap, but after you get over that, it's super straightforward. But Barbarian and Scout, you both have a really high plateau of how to get like what a good player is compared to what the average players are, because the knowledge that it takes to be tactically sound, the knowing where abilities need to be applied, knowing how to move the field, not have tunnel vision, those are all years and years and years and years of experience and practice, and it's you can't pick it up right away and be like, I'm amazing. That's not what Scout is for. But in the right hands.
At least with Barbarian, it's a little easier for spellcasters just because you have 2 immunities to their abilities. But Scout, you only have resistance, and you only have 1 of them per life. So
I mean, you guys
really
are
need
the
to
flip
watch
side of
out.
Barbarian, because you get no straight up immunities, but you get 2 enchantments. Like, you just took their enchantment and put it on yourself. Stole it right off. Any other weaknesses, Snell?
None that I can think of. Mine are pretty just tactically sound on the field. That as I'm playing, what I see and just going from there.
Makes sense. Torgen's weaknesses.
So it's funny we mentioned Barbarian. We also fall into the same trap with our ability, particularly to dispel magic. Just like sometimes they forget to use Fire to Death.
Yeah.
There are situations where we just say, oh, I should use this spell here. No, I'll save it for the next person. There's not going to be a particular situation where your one dispel is going to suddenly change the entire tide of war to your team. Like, if it's a big target, if it's that Avatar Nature Door, just get rid of it.
Just get it gone.
Like, yeah, get it done. There's sometimes where you're like, oh, there's only 2 minutes left in the match. Oh
no.
And to piggyback on that is if that dispel magic that you're talking about, if they start running away, then again you've cast shove without using anything. So you might as well just use it. If they start running away out of your casting range, then they're not your problem anymore. You haven't used your dispel magic. So just try and use it anyway.
I gotta start handing y'all amplifications because that's just funny.
Oh, please do.
It's like, what happened? I got a 50-foot tracking. A what?
Your hype man build, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
the 50-foot assassinate on assassins. Holy shit, that's crazy.
I love the weird things that Bard has, and that I can just be entirely useless by myself. Because the spell list that Storm is talking about is called Hype Man. I built it. I can post it later. It's a lot of just support for another class. I barely have anything to do. But amplification makes chaos reign. When you throw amplification on your whole team, and all of a sudden the scout is tracking from 50 feet, the assassin has a 50-foot coup de grace, it's really weird, and nobody expects it, but it's hysterical to watch, because you're like, hold person, you are not in range. I have amplification. Gotcha.
You're just handing out megaphones to everybody.
Basically, yeah. I mean, it's like...
The Spanish Inquisition of spell lists.
No one expects the 35th amplification. I gotta do that. I'm gonna follow around a scout in one of these battle games and just give them extensions, because extended tracking.
Extension. Okay, you're gonna have to remind me. Amplification. Will that work on dispel magic?
It'll work on any verbal that has a range of 20 feet.
Dispel magic.
Yeah. So you have a 50-foot DMAG for no good reason.
Every good reason, because it's DMAG.
Okay, so if they make it chargeable, then yeah, you could have a Gatling gun to spell in the middle of the field, which is kind of awful.
Just a
Maybe
bard
it-
with
You guys are changing my mind. Maybe it should be a charge 10.
a bard with Song of Power, confidence,
no.
amplifications, and a scout.
Yeah.
We're gonna make a destructive machine gun in the middle of the field.
I love it.
Oh, God.
Nobody gets strips but my team. Ah.
Dear God. I'm gonna do this next keep. This is happening.
And tickets to next keep. Let's.
All right. Any other weaknesses we need to be aware of as scouts?
They all said it. Barbarians, warriors. If I'm being chased down by a freaking full 6-point plate pole arm or double flail wielding fool, I'm probably just gonna Shadowstep and be like, piss off, get out of here.
So, the advantage of it is most of the classes you mentioned besides the casters, because the casters have an answer to 99% of their problems, because casters are currently over versatile compared to the melee classes. As a main caster, I 100% agree. But like the warriors and the barbarians don't have an answer for your Shadowstep. Like you can just, and they're useless. They have to go get a friend, which I don't think a 6-point armor wearing warrior wants to go hunt down a friend and come back to you.
Well, by that time you're already gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, their insult specifically says magic, which means all your extraordinary stuff, you're still good to heal yourself. You're still good to release. Like
And that shadow step still works
is still
because
yeah.
it's also extraordinary.
You are the only class that can release yourself from insult, which is awesome. Like I love using the insult awe combo, and you guys just stare at me like, "Why release?" And then just like continue on your day. Doesn't matter. All right, so we hit this a little bit, but I want to smack this nail on the head real quick. Scout is considered to be one of the weaker written classes. Why is this potentially wrong, and how do you make the class shine? Let's start with Torgen.
We've said it again and again and again. It's got the right abilities. It's got the right equipment. It's the number of abilities that kind of hinder it a bit. And we're supposed to be the most flexible class, but we can only really get back a little bit of our stuff as opposed to being able to prepare for any situation at any time kind of deal. Yeah.
So preparation and spreading those abilities to when they're needed, but not holding them to when you are holding 4 abilities at the end of the game that you never used.
Use it.
Yeah. It's on a list.
Use your gear, use your abilities. Like that should go for any class whatsoever, but it's
particularly
fairly important for Scout.
Yeah, particularly your charge stuff because you can get it back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just use it.
Storm, why is it potentially wrong?
At face value, I can see why people have that idea in their head, just because we have so many abilities, but it's just so little, right? Like you have 1 or 2 of everything. The way to make it shine though is I talked about it earlier. Teamwork is so important for Scout. So important. Just the fact that you have a level 4 ability that makes you have a natural attunement. You know, that is a bit ability that needs to be used with others, and you should take advantage of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just teamwork. Teamwork is so big.
I mean, that evolution ability basically entirely relies on other people because your blessing doesn't take up an enchantment slot. So you still got 2 free. They can't be protection, but you still got 2 free. Or no, they can't be another blessing. I don't remember.
Essence Graph Druid.
Protection.
You have 6 enchantments.
There's so many.
Like
That's too many.
It's way too many, but it can have its. I mean, depending on the team, right? If you see a battle mage wizard, then don't do that. But
yeah, that's literally just asking for a DMAG.
I mean, you can use that to your advantage too. It's like they see you have like a shit ton of enchantments, and you just run that way, and you're taking that wizard with you.
get a bunch of crappy enchantments.
Yep.
Get like
I
a
think
big,
Get the Earth.
get,
well, no, I think you're. Yeah, please take it off me, please. What was the one that your buddy on the wizard one? He said that imbue armor is really funny to take as a wizard because
oh
it looks like gift of air because it's one strip.
yeah, it's one white strip, but it doesn't
Yeah.
do anything for a wizard. Yeah, bluffing with your enchantment strips until they get close and they ask the question like, "What is that? Imbue armor."
Take it off me, I dare you. Yeah.
And then just get somebody else to drop more stuff on you and mind games once again, playing mind games.
Yeah. I think it was Al that was mentioning about his the warrior one that he was mentioning about his ancestral armor. They ask you to declare. You declare that you only have harden, and then they're like,
Oh,
okay,
that was Ty.
and then you back off. It was Ty,
Yeah.
and then you back off and
Cast
cast
it,
your ancestral armor.
and then you step
Yeah.
up and you have it. Yep. I mean, you guys do the same thing with your blessing.
Yep.
Like they cast something at you. I mean, if a bard casts awe at you, you just step back, cast it on yourself, and then run forward after the awe is done, and they cast it at you again, and you're like, resist it.
And it's also extraordinary, which means you don't have
Yep.
to have a free hand for it.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So it's like, okay, bye. You're leaving. Cool. Now I'm talking to myself.
I have a quick conversation with myself, move myself up,
Yeah.
get immunity or
you don't know what I'm casting. You're outside of 20 feet.
Yeah. Arduin, any why is it not one of the weaker classes? Or how do you make it shine so it doesn't seem like that?
Well, I think we've talked about this so much, but knowing the game is really important for Scout. Because even when I was level 1 Scout and I didn't know anything about the game, like I still enjoyed it, but I didn't start loving it until I was like, oh man, these EX abilities are really handy in these situations against these people, and like you really have to know the game well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why people see it as weaker, because you have to know the game to make it strong.
It's that high plateau of expertise once again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ironically,
Yeah,
Scout and Assassin and Barbarian are the ones we hand off to newbies really quickly, and Scout's not one of them, even though they're basically like the straight up first level counter to Assassin. And
Have my hot take of that.
yeah,
Same.
no, like first level, their tracking counters first level assassins. After first level, that does no longer apply because they get way too many other things to start being wonky, and it's a weird assumption that I was taught when I started playing, and then after learning how the game goes, was totally just like, oh yeah, no, that's not true. Scout is not the counter to Assassin. Assassin has 1.5 million freaking insubstantial states, and the Wizard should deal with them because they have Dimensional Rift and just tell them to go off into the ether, die. Sorry, I interrupted. Ardo, what else did you have?
Making the class shine is showing that versatility and knowing where you fit best into situations, because you can really turn the tide of a game if you say, I'm gonna go here and deal with this high level caster instead of going somewhere else. Like you can easily turn the tide, and especially with like the ranged, like you have arrows. Like arrows are a really good distraction. Throwies are a really good distraction. Even if you're not hitting anyone, like it's still keeping someone's attention and keeping them worried about you.
Oh yeah, being perceived as a threat can almost be better than actually being a threat. Sometimes, like if you draw 3 people on the flank, we talked about the flank a couple times, and Lily's talked about this in past ones. If you're on the flank and you draw 3 people, you have done your job amazingly. You've got 3 for 1. That's a beautiful trade. You don't even have to fight them.
Don't even have to go to combat.
No.
You've already done it.
You can. I mean, that's a perfect time for that Shadowstep. You get like 5 people mad at you. They all charge Shadowstep, and then like there's
Run,
no
run 100 feet that way. Shadow step right in front of them, and then they have to walk back.
So much good stuff with the Scout. Snow, why? How do you make it shine?
I'd have to say making it shine is thinking outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
So running around with a bow, when I come across people that are just, they just flash it in your face. You've pissed off enough people, pro's gonna come out regardless.
Yep.
It's like
Yep.
you still take those shots, and people are like, "Well, I'm pro. Why is he still shooting me?" It's not to be a butt, but change your aspect of thinking. Your weapons aren't covered by pro.
Oh, they're
You
not.
still need a
Yeah.
your sword still needs to be able to hit me. If you ain't got a sword, then you don't have to take the arrows that are hitting you, but that in itself is a deterrent. You might have pro, but you don't want to still get pegged by those arrows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Armor.
I don't know about you, but like if I see an arrow coming back at me, I'm moving my feet.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
you've
It's
counted
just-
it. You've done a break con technically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
With armor, I can't count how many times where I've ran up against a guy with a shield or has a war skirt, and I'm like, I don't want to spend 50 arrows trying to bust him down. And see if I can bounce this arrow off the ground underneath his armor.
Oh.
Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes
Or
it
a throw.
doesn't. Yeah, thank you. Or a throwaway. So it's
Bounces
thinking.
down.
I think thinking outside the box is really where you make it shine. It's trying to take the straightforward line of thinking that we're used to in games, and then just going the other way with it.
Being inventive and creative.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It's probably a good answer to your level 6 versus Paragon too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
being creative
Is
versus
the amount
just
of
using.
adaptability and creativity is
Exactly.
something that really stands out.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, yeah, taking those opportunities to really, if you know the game and you know there's some exploits that you can take, use them. Like
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
the arrows, all projectiles besides spell balls, bounces count. Use it. I know it's tricky
Exactly.
sometimes, but like, yeah, you get those arrows to bounce.
Oh yeah.
Good stuff. Um, okay, so we got the question that I wanted to hit on the head out of it. Now we're up to the most important question I think in this entire podcast, because it is a question about making sure that everyone has fun, making sure that we're still growing our parks, even though we're trying to get better. And that is how to get better and not ruin people's fun. So let's start with Storm on this one. How do you get better and not ruin people's fun?
Well, Scout is actually one of the better classes for it, just because of how you have such an adaptive array of things to do, but you don't have so much of it. So it's a really great class to play if you don't want to ruin too much stuff. Like you could play Druid and have the same effect, but you're gonna have a lot more of stuff. So it can ruin games, right? But Scout, you don't have as much. And then if you are still ruining games that way, don't charge your things. Then you have less. You have to choose when you're gonna use your abilities. You're not as strong on the field, and it's such an easy way to fix it. Right? It's a really good class to do for that.
It's you don't have to nerf yourself as much because you're
No.
not nerfing. Well, you're not nerfing your abilities. You're nerfing your strategies, which is
And equipment is a thing too, is right.
Yeah.
So like if you're really prevalent on sword and board, then don't do sword and board. You can do flow for a day. Just throwies is really funny too. Like
Yeah. I made these
make
throws
the
yesterday.
game fun.
Yeah. I mean, for
Yeah.
yourself included. That's super important.
Yeah.
If you're not having fun
Yeah.
learning the class and getting better, figure out a way to do it. Because it's Amp we love this game. We want to keep playing, and we want everyone to keep playing, but having fun. So keep that up.
RP is really good too for this.
Yeah.
Because you can be that angsty ranger in the background as well if you want to. Rooting.
This is so different.
Oh, you got too close to me, throwy. Yeah.
Like,
Leave me alone. Yeah. This is my forest.
It's my forest. That's good. Roleplay is one I don't think, and especially in this podcast, and this is a side effect of the fact that Polaris doesn't focus on roleplay in our Paragons as much as we really should. we don't emphasize that you need to be really role play esque in your Paragon hut, but I think it's something we Polaris should work on because there are other kingdoms that are phenomenal at it. They do great role play all the time with their Paragons, and they expect it from them. And Polaris were like, "So, are you worth 5 people on the battlefield?" And that's like our prerogative. I love my kingdom, but we have like that's my one problem with us is we don't role play as Paragons. We have whole events for it. We don't do it. Arduin, well, what are some things you do to get better but not ruin people's fun?
I like to pigeonhole myself. I'd limit the gear that I'm gonna use, and I would say, okay, I'm only gonna go sword and board this game, or I'm only gonna go flow,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll take away the adaptability that I usually have that makes me so fierce on the field. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I only have flow, then I have to learn a lot more about how to deal with archers
Mm-hmm.
and classes that are gonna break my flow, rather than if I play just bow or something. Like you teach yourself to adapt to situations that you won't necessarily find yourself in, but it's good to know anyways. Like it puts you to the test in a bad situation kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It's just continuing to experience like the kit that you normally don't use and getting
Mm,
better with it,
yeah.
knowing those limitations. Um, Torge, what are things you do to get better and not ruin people's fun?
So good news, as everyone already said, Scout has very few ways to be oppressive against everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, unless you're really being a tyrant with a bow or something around those lines, like you'd have to be trying really hard. Um, so some of the things I like doing is I'll actually call myself like, hey, I'm gonna play an armored healer today. I can only use my heals by releases on everyone else,
Oh God.
as opposed to doing it to myself. I'm gonna stay in the front line and see if this works out. Things like that. Or else it's I cannot touch these swords until this quiver is empty if I'm trying to work on my bow.
Mm, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Definitely depends on the size of your quiver.
correct.
I mean, if you've got
I'm not talking golf. I'm not talking like a golf bag here.
oh, okay, okay.
We're not archers.
I'm
Yeah,
We're
we
not
don't
archers.
turret,
I'm just
not
saying.
turrets.
Aeolus has played Scout a couple times, and he can fit like 60 arrows in some of his quivers. So, like, just a scope of reference. They're really ridiculous and fantastic, and because he's like 5 feet tall, and they're cement-shaped tubes with a bunch of other little tubes in them. He
The
can
modular ones that he was talking about.
yeah, they're
Like,
amazing and
oh
fantastic, but they're
my.
larger than him, and it's ridiculous sometimes. But he can unleash almost all of them all the time, which is great. Um, it's yeah. I really don't want to have to not use my swords until I unload one of those quivers. That sounds like a lot of me shooting, and which is good. I should practice shooting because I'm bad at it, but I don't really want to shoot for 4 games in a row without reloading my
Right.
quiver. So speaking of shooting, Snow, what are some things that you do to get better but not ruin parks?
I definitely have to say, yeah, just limiting your equipment and stuff. A lot of the things I used to do to just get better at shooting and just overall having fun was I'd just take all my arrows and just throw them out in the field because it would work on, eventually you will be in a position where you don't have any arrows and there'll be arrows on the ground. You got to learn how to, pick and choose which arrow is the safest to go to. Do you have enough time to get it? You just got to look around and see that helps you work on yourself and with your bow and skills, other stuff. But overall, and not ruining other people's fun, I would have to say being approachable
Mm-hmm.
and being willing to definitely teach and having the patience because a lot of people don't have patience. Having the patience to interact with somebody mid game and helping them understand something that you might have done to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I casted, I'm in the shadows now. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
Some people won't explain it, but it helps you be approachable to the class, and little by little, you turn people over to playing scout.
Mm-hmm.
Because hey, that really cool dude played scout. He had some cool abilities. I want to try it. Or Yeah, they like the versatility of all the abilities that you're showing out in the field. You're not dominating, but at the same time, you yourself are not being dominated.
Right.
That's an overall. I think being approachable is really a good way to not ruin people's fun, and at the same time have fun yourself.
Hmm. Being that teacher is still a huge aspect of being a paragon, a knight, a master of any kind. You've got to start not necessarily like classroom teaching, but like bringing your
Yeah,
knowledge to the field and letting everybody have the opportunity to learn from you if they want it. Um,
exactly.
yeah, I being taking the time out of your park day to explain to the new players or the less experienced players what just happened. It may not be super fun for you, but it will infinitely increase their fun, which is ultimately the goal. We want them to stick around. We want them to keep playing. We want them to
Exactly.
get better. Partially because if they get better, that means you have someone better to fight because you can't get better by just beating the same people over and over again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Actually, on just
yeah.
one little caveat that I just remembered, um, Arduin probably forgot about this, but when he was going for his Paragon Scout, one of the things that he started doing was restarting his whole trek into level 1 to 6. So what he'd do is that he was at level 6 and he said, you know what, I'm gonna restart at level 1. And then he just did the math and he's like, okay, I've done 5 credits, now I'm at level 2. And he just restarted the whole track for himself. It helped him learn his abilities. It helped his whole park learn the abilities that he has. And I think that in itself is good for anyone that trying to go for the Paragon path. It limits yourself very easily, and it allows you to learn your abilities again, and it allows you to not break the game because now you're a level 1 or a
Mhm.
level 2 or a level 3.
Yeah,
You're not your full at your max, right?
Yeah. It's
that's pretty good.
um, I the park that I started at was relatively small, and we had a lot of new players, and we started doing things where we'd have park days where everyone's level 1, everyone's level 3, everyone's level 2, whatever. And I honestly think that path idea of going over and starting your journey again as someone who's been through the whole journey once is probably one of the best things you can do for your mindset to figure out what each ability is actually worth. Because if you're forced to use only your second level abilities, there's not that many, but you know now a million other ways to use them instead of just the classic ways that you were taught. That ingenuity, that's a really good way to do it. I'm glad that was brought up. Thank you, Arduin, for coming up with that.
That's
Um,
good.
I like that a lot.
I actually just to point out, I actually did games played instead of park days,
Gotcha.
just so I wouldn't be stuck on level 1 for 5 park days. But like even so, like I don't know how many games you guys play on your park days, but
Mm-hmm.
I do like 2 games of Scout, and then I play healer or something,
Mm-hmm.
and it still took me a while to get to level 6 again. And when I got to level 6, I was like, oh man, I I appreciated level 6 at that point.
He prestiged.
Yeah.
It's weird to
That
it's
is a
weird
good way
to
to do it.
miss it's weird to miss adaptive blessing, you know? Like
Mhm.
I mean, yeah,
yeah.
it's a good way to think about that. Like prestiging your way through your class is. I might do that with Bard and just go back to having a stick and some shoves.
It's kind of fun. I've done a little bit of because I'm currently pushing for my Paragon Druid as well. So I've done a little bit of it as well. Just played level 1, and it's pretty funny to see.
I've definitely done it with peasant. Yeah.
Yeah, that level 6 pitchfork is real great.
Yeah, real good.
Yeah, that's brave of you.
Oh, that's so brave.
All right, so we're at audience questions. I did not check if we have any audience left. Um, we do. Rand, if you want to unmute yourself, if you have any questions, you are free to ask them. Otherwise, We'll move on to constructive spicy takes. So, Rain, you got any questions?
Um, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I got 3 questions.
Awesome.
Now I gotta remember them. The the first one is, what is your favorite thing about being, whether it be like a Paragon or just your favorite thing about being a Paragon Scout? What is or just even playing that game? Like, what's your favorite?
Well, let's start with Snow, and then we'll go around.
Just because I got mine back in early 7 and late 7, because they accidentally awarded me 2 masterhoods for the same thing.
Nice.
I would have to say it's the ability to, as dumb as it might sound, the ability to be able to tell people how the class used to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the new blood coming in is only seeing what you're seeing now and the changes that are happening now. They don't realize how the class used to be.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be just a quest class. It really only shined when you were doing quest games. It really wasn't a battle game class. So I think what I enjoy most is being able to take that history and bring it over. It helps me overall love Scout more, but being able to tell newer players coming in who ask about it, like, hey, how did the class used to be? I think that's what I like most about it, is watching the class and seeing how much it's changed. And going back to a question that we had earlier, whereas it's written to be a weaker class, I don't really see that. Granted, I do agree with not having enough abilities. We only get like 1 or 2, in the abilities. So I wish we had more, but that's generally how the class has always been, at least as far back as I've played.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, it's gotten even stronger because we are more offensively capable than we were years back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I like about it, is being able to actually have lived and seeing the changes now.
That's really cool. The history behind things. I'm super obsessed
Yeah.
with that because it's. I'm belted to Sir Michael, so I listen to stories from old days all the goddamn time. And I love that stuff. I love the histories. I do also love the weird fact that Scout was not a class until V5.
5, yeah.
And then I can't remember the name of the person who created it, but that's like.
What? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
Very
off.
good. I don't know the name of it. Do you know?
What? Go ahead. What was it?
Who started Scout?
I don't know. My
Okay.
history doesn't go back that far. I just know one ability that I did miss was I think Scout got it, and it was back in 6, and I believe it was called Animal Companion or something like that. You could choose anybody from the field to be up to a level 3 animal fighting companion for you, and they would fight alongside you. So it didn't have any stipulations. Yeah, it was pretty broken, but it was
This is my
fun.
bear.
So what I'm hearing is that scouts need lycanthropy others.
Yeah.
That's what we get, right?
Yeah.
Animal companion. Like can't it be other? I mean, I would love that. We've got, and I know this happens in Texas. I don't know about VO. I haven't been out to VO yet. So we've got some very heavy tournament fighters that don't participate in battle games as classes very often. They'd be great animal companions.
That's primarily why that disappeared.
You're like, hey, almost warlord, come here.
Hey, DAG player.
Come here. Yeah, you're gonna go beat people with the stick, and you're gonna be my bear. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's
But
fantastic.
sorry, Ren, for being so long-winded on that question, but that's what I like about it.
No, I really liked your answer. Thank you for that. That was awesome.
History is always a good thing to know. Unfortunately, Amtgard doesn't repeat history very often. We're bad at it. We'll get better. We'll get better at it some point. Torgan, say that question.
I guess one of the great things about being a Paragon is actually encountering people who are interested in the class and actually being able to educate. Because that also leads to other questions about various aspects of the game that we go into. Like, oh, now we're going to educate about enchantments. Now we're going to educate about states.
Mm-hmm.
And just overall being able to help others understand the rulebook better.
Teaching aspect is super important. I really enjoy. I mean, obviously, I run this thing. Storm.
I'm just gonna leave it with teaching, because if anyone saw my video feed of a little white ghost going through my feed, that was actually Rin. She's here.
Oh,
So if she has any other questions, she can ask me. But
I was gonna tell
I
you later that you were just haunted.
right.
Yeah.
She was the little blanket ghost. But teaching is a big thing for me. I love having apprentices and being able to focus. Like I mean, I like teaching without that as well. I do it all the time. America showing up to my classes for battle games and for Druid specifically.
Yeah,
But
we're gonna plug that more at the end.
okay. The fact that it's almost like a belted line in a way that you can focus with your apprentice and work with them to better themselves, and I love that. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.
Going to one of your apprentices that got the silver trim, Arduin.
Yeah, well, I learned from Storm, and he he would message me because we're not at the same park. He would message me and say, "Hey, what do you need from me?" And I'd say, "I don't know. I feel like a challenge this week," and that was always that's really what helped me become a Paragon and in teaching and stuff. And that's one of the most important aspects to me is like someone saying, "Hey, what can I work on this week?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, let's work on this together." And like I love having that.
It's
we used to do trials kind of similar to how I can't remember your bard
Broton.
Paragon's name.
Broton,
Broton.
yeah.
He gave you that trial of only using your per life and dagger and stuff.
Mhm.
Well, you would do the same thing for scout. It would be like, get a kill with your throw for one of your games or something like that, and just try and work on your throw aiming and stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, we're both Canadians, and our parks are pretty new compared to probably what your guys' are. I think Western Winds is 2010 that it started, and mine's 2012.
Yeah.
So very, very new, but they're very far apart. Like we're about 9 hours away. So it's not like I can go to his park often and train with him. So it was very helpful to, we would set a trial, and I would also try to do the trial as well, and then we would just compare notes essentially. And it was very helpful.
That's a good way to do it. Is work with, like, follow alongside, do the stuff with your apprentice, or even if you're doing knighthood to squire, like that same thing. Do it with them.
Even if because then it allows me to, like, if I'm giving him a trial and I don't know if it's too hard or not, like it's like if I try it, then I know, right? And it always allows me as a teacher to learn alongside them and see what I need to improve as well, which is cool.
Yeah, it sounds like teaching and educating the populace and people that are interested is one of the best parts of being a Paragon. I agree. It's
great, man.
I mean, it's part of the silver trim. People are going to ask you questions. People are going to want clarifications. People are going to want to learn why you took this time to go get that silver trim, and being able to enlighten them and bring some new ideas to their game is one of the best things ever. Like we went to Texas a couple years ago, and we found somebody was already using catch and release, and we were like, "That's awesome! We just found that, and you've been using it for like 4 months. Great!" It's just like a great explosion of like, "Oh, we're gonna do this over and over again. Everyone's gonna get to learn it." It's great. All right, Rin, what's the other question or questions? You had two more.
Yeah, I got 2 more. Thanks for answering those. The second one is for anyone that's striving for their Paragonhood. What pieces of advice would you recommend to anyone striving for their Paragonhood?
We'll start with Arduin.
Make sure you're still having fun with the class, because I've seen more than a few people get burnt out just because like they're stressed about it. Like we don't become Paragons because we want the silver trim. Like I think if you become a Paragon just to say you're a Paragon, then like that's really not worth it. Like I got my Paragon because I loved the class and I wanted to strive for that. And anytime I felt burnt out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna switch things up, and I'm gonna try playing healer for a couple weeks and come back to this and see how I feel, or just try something new. Like you got to have fun is my biggest
It's a goal.
thing.
It's a goal, not a need. It's a goal.
Yeah.
Storm?
I've already forgotten the question. It's
Advice for Paragons. Or advice
oh,
for people that want to be Paragons.
travel is pretty big.
Yeah.
If you're not testing yourself with people that you're not used to, then you're not gonna get there as quickly.
No,
That's a big thing.
Steel sharpens steel. Unfortunately, if you rub two pieces of steel against each other long enough, they wear out. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Go find other pieces of steel. Torgan.
Never be afraid to ask or talk to anyone else, even if it's someone else who's even someone who's a paragon of another class or anything like that. Talk to them. Ask questions. You'll learn from so many different sources. It's not even funny.
Oh yeah. It's most of my Paragonhood I can attribute to traveling around with 4 other people on other Paragon paths, and just like running through ideas that way. Different perspectives. Snow?
I would definitely have to say don't get hung up on it. It's great to accept teachings from others. They can teach you how to fight, how to shoot, how to cast spells like them all day, every day. Bottom line is, you will never cast like them. You're just your own individual. Don't be afraid to act on what you think the spell or the way you should throw a shot or the way you should shoot or the way you should play your class. You should act on it, because that in the end is the individuality you're looking for. You don't want to be thrown into a bucket full of other people playing the same class. You just got to stick out. And overall, yeah, it's been. I mean, we've hit on this tons of times. Have fun.
Oh yeah.
So,
this game is a game. It's a hobby.
yes.
None of us are getting paid to become Paragons. Like,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Man,
Yeah.
if only.
We'd have some real toxic Paragon hoodness stuff going on.
Yeah.
We were getting paid to become Paragons. Dear God. I'm gonna jump in and say, watch this show. That's my recommendation to get better.
I was actually gonna say that too. I've learned so much from watching I've watched the Druid one first because that's what I was striving for. But I've learned so much more from the other videos.
Yeah.
Like,
it's different perspectives, different ideas, different ways to come around to. I mean, archery is in Druid, Scout, Assassin, Archer. You've got options. Not all of them are the same answer, but they all incorporate archery. They're going to have different opinions, figuring out different ways to use it. Archers might come up with some answer that doesn't work for assassins, and assassins might come up with an answer that doesn't work for scouts. Vice versa, everything around. Different
and
ideas
it might be
spread.
not as straightforward either. Like, like you were saying, like it might not be the same thing for an assassin or a druid or anything like that, but you can kind of adapt it as well, right? Like, for example, the bluff casting from your healer video.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about that much of it until I watched the video, and then I was like, you know what? A lot of people in my park know what heat weapon is, and as a druid, I can use that to my advantage. You know, and it's just not something that I would have figured out until I saw a different perspective of it.
It's definitely that's kind of the point, is to open, and that's the point of travel, is opening your eyes to different opportunities, different ways of thinking, different skills. Because I mean, if you have a park, even if you have a duchy level park, that's still only like up to 60-ish people before it turns into a grand duchy. That's 60 people. They're probably going to start growing towards the same metas. They're going to have similar fighting styles. Unless they also travel a lot, they're going to start falling into the same habits. Go find somebody else. Go find another park to have fun and get beat up at, because that is a way that you learn to get better.
That assassin bomb technique I didn't learn until I traveled. You know, I didn't learn until I went to Pack War, I think it was. It's a local event, and it was a bigger event, and that's the only time I learned that was the assassin was like, track me. I'm gonna walk that way. I'm gonna blink that way. Track me. I'm like, okay. I don't even know your name, so I'm gonna use the scripters and stuff, right? But it worked. He killed 5 people right in a row because they were walled, right? They were shield walling,
Oh yeah.
and he just walked behind him. He just tapped all 5 of them because they didn't know it.
Boom.
And I was like, wow, that was so useful.
All right. What's the last question, Rin?
I might not ask this really well because I don't know how to word it. So just bear with me. How I feel like this it's a really good accomplishment when you become a paragon and get the silver trim. So what would you say is like your proudest moment of becoming a paragon? Is it like the day that you got your silver trim, like when you did you guys get to celebrate? Or was it a certain battle game that you're really proud of? Like, so feel free to brag because you guys have bragging rights.
Let's start with Torgen on this one.
Nice.
I'm sorry.
Don't sound so sure right now.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Should I brag?
This is me picking
No,
on Torgen
you
just a
should,
little
yeah.
bit. Because Torgen
That's
is
all right.
one of our newest knights, and I know he's very humble, and I'm just gonna make him brag about himself right now.
Yeah,
I'll tell you about a really, really weird moment that made me think a little better about Paragon and all the good nonsense.
Escaping
Um,
the question.
I know I am. But I remember walking out as Scout with this sash, and I had people be like, "Oh yeah, we got a Paragon now. Oh, we got something." I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" Oh, that's right. So it gives you that little reminder that you have a bit of responsibility as a Paragon. That you need to keep your head in the game a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
that silver trim's a target. As much as it is like a badge of honor, it's also a target.
Yep.
Storm.
As far as breaking goes, not that much.
So for me, mine was when I got my Paragon hood. It was a little harder for myself. When I got mine, I would be what you would have called a park Paragon. Just with how it was given out, and I know a lot of people were not happy about that, and they told me, and it was really hard for me to prove myself after I got my Paragon hood. So when I got my Paragon hood, I wasn't super thrilled with it. What I was thrilled was when Arduin got his Paragon hood, because I was up on stage with him when he got it, and it was really special for me, for him to reach his goal and for me to be there with him. That was a big deal for me.
It's always cool to see the people you teach and have helped raise are raised and acknowledged by the peers and everybody else that they have made it, even though they've made it that point. It's good to see the acknowledgement.
Yeah, and not to make it about myself, but it helped me feel a lot better for having the sash on me, you know? Because like I said, a lot of people, for a lot of years, I stopped playing Scout altogether because of all the hate I was getting for the sash. And it made me feel a lot better when I saw a really good friend of mine who had pushed himself to get this award get it, and it made him feel great, but it also made me feel that I was doing the job that I should be doing.
Makes sense. Arduin?
What Storm said.
We got really drunk that night.
As
we have
allowed to.
We have photos and videos of us. Oh, it was hilarious, man.
It's carousing around events with people that are getting awards is so much fun. I highly recommend it for everybody. That has nothing to do with Paragon Hood, though. Just do it in general. I don't care if you're on the path or not. Go carousing. Do you have anything else on that, Arduin?
Well, it's like that night, it was just like the recognition was nice. And like knowing that my hard work paid off and my friend got his Paragon Monk at the same event.
Oh, good old
Like, it was just nice, like knowing that like it wasn't over, but it was like I've reached this, and I'm just gonna keep on going.
Mhm.
But now, like now, I can flaunt it a little more.
It's a it's the beginning of another journey. It's not
Hmm.
the last goal of any of them. It's the beginning of a new one.
It's like you said with the level 6 to Paragon, or what I said with the level 6 to
Yeah.
Paragon. It's like another uh, it's like another threshold that you get. You
Hmm.
know, like the MMO RPG thing. It's just the second stage,
Yep.
and now you can go up from there. I've never stopped learning, even with Paragon. You
Nor
know,
should you.
yeah,
Always have the opportunity to learn. Always keep learning because the game's going to change, meta's going to change, rules are going to change. Figure out a better way around. If a rule changes, make the best of it. Snow, did you hear the question? I know you were bouncing around for a minute.
Sorry. One more time. What was it?
It was the what's like your proudest moment or something you're really proud of
Oh,
about being a Paragon?
I would have to say definitely getting my first one was definitely the proudest moment, just because I had been playing several years at that time, and it was finally, it's like I worked. I still remember the day. It was they called me up to get it, and I honestly I was trying to um what's the word for it? Just trying not to accept it because I just didn't feel that I was ready. And it took some people just going, "Shut up, go get your award," for me to go up there to go get it. But I think it's probably knowing the times when I got it. So the first one I think was awarded to me because it was Battle of the what was it? It was a Forest War back at Clan, and it was out of all the scouts there, we were having a huge game, and people were were teleporting behind our line to come back and kill us that way. It was out of all the scouts there, it was pretty much my name that I was hearing called the most. It was like, hey, you've got people, go track them, go kill them.
Mhm.
And it's being needed like that. And the fact that, my overall goal was and still is playing scout is when you hear scout, that my name is what I want to come first. It's like you
Mhm.
hear scout, my name. And that's what I wanted. And then the second time after playing and getting awarded my masterhood again was being able to physically see the battlefield stop, not
Mhm.
just at a park level but at a kingdom level event, to just take an entire flank by yourself and see everything in front of you, that whole crowd just stop and think about for a second who's in front of them and what they've seen you do in the past.
Right.
That overall was probably the greatest moments, those two.
The
It all boils down to that battlefield presence.
yeah.
It's you're one dude facing down everything that should probably kill you, but the fact that your presence there alone made all of that stop, even for a few seconds, for them to all think, "Wait a minute, this guy's in front of us."
Yeah.
That in itself is something.
It's if you can get your name recognition to the point that people pause, that's you've made it basically at that point.
Yeah, that. I probably have to say those are my greatest moments, and why I like the scout one. Just it. I don't know. I think like when I played, so I've been playing now for about 18, almost 20 years.
Mhm.
And to take this class when I first started, take a totally underdog class that nobody played because it was just a quest game and not many quest games were played, to take it and make it something that people fear
Mhm.
when they step in front of you was great. And that's what I liked. And then I set out to do that, and I still try to set out and do that every time I play.
It's a worthy goal. It's getting harder because classes are a
Oh
lot
yeah.
more balanced, and we have uh, ridiculously large battlefields with like 600 people on them. Just so many people. Um,
Yeah.
I want more people on battlefields. By the way, I just it gets
Yes.
chaotic as all hell when you're like, hey, we have to balance a 300 v 300. Oh, a what? Yep. Okay, we'll figure it out.
Oh
Any
yeah.
audience questions? No. Oh, Maddox, you got a question?
What drove you all to Scout?
I think.
My
Well, I couldn't drive, so my mom.
No, what I'm talking
Oh.
about.
No, I was kidding. I'm sorry.
Why did you
Uh,
choose the Scout class?
well, guys, if you don't mind, I can take this one first, real
Go for
quick.
it.
absolutely.
What drove me to the class, honestly, realistically, was some of the first times I've ever came out to AmpGuard and I was able to really choose my class and no one picking it for me, and I just really went with the underdog class. I was like, I'm the underdog here. I'm starting out as level 1 everything. I don't know how to fight. I don't know how to shoot. I don't know what magic is. I want a class that I can grow with and is going to grow with me. So I chose Scout.
Works. Let's go downwards. Torgan.
So, like I said earlier, when I went to Wolfheim, like there was 4 or 5 assassins running around, so it was strictly just like a meta play. But the more I played it and the more I read the rules up, it kind of matched some of the things I was interested in. Like roleplay wise, I started thinking heavily on becoming like a monster hunter type of thing and thinking that the scout was able to be flexible against all the different monsters out there. So that made it more appealing and more attractive as well. So A, I had a roleplay thing for it, and B, it was able to perform very well.
I mean, you've got the wild man look going now. You could roll that in.
Yeah.
Storm.
So mine's a little bit more nerdy. When I first started, actually, the photo that Merrick picked is like
It was on your
5 years
Facebook.
old. I know, but it's like 5 years old. So when I first started playing Scout, I had just finished leveling Monk, and the reason I played Monk in the first place wasn't actually because I was new and it was an easy class to get into. I am a huge weeb. I love my Japanese stuff. So I was wearing I went to a there's a website. I found a LARPing Hakama pants and kimono, and that's what I wore for my Monk gear. And then when I went into my next class, I was like, okay, so what would work? I was like, I know that Assassin says Ronin in one of its things, and I know that Warrior says, I think it says Musashi as one of their things, but I think Scout fits more for the Samurai than I do those other classes, and that's exactly why I went. The next day, I started saving up for the armor that's in that photo, and I started playing Scout that way.
Nice.
Whatever
cool.
brings you to it.
Yeah, and then later on, I do have my armor sitting here. I didn't know if I would need it to show off, but I am a big Lord of the Rings fan as well, and it honestly it makes me mad more than it should that it's called Scout and not Ranger. It's Ranger. Let's be real. But why? I'm not getting into that. But that's what brought me to it.
It might be a D&D licensing thing, like the same reason we don't call Assassin Rogue.
Yeah, but Scouts in there as well for the Rogue archetype.
It's
Yeah,
literally
but-
have an ability called Ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point, we're getting confused in a bunch of different things moving around.
I mean, I get it, but like Strider is in one of the things it's Ranger.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Arduin, why'd you go to Scout? I know you said you loved it.
Yeah, I've always just been interested in the Ranger concept, and like the versatility was a big thing as well because I was like I played Barbarian for my first 2 days because they said, "Hey, play Barbarian. It's easy." And then I looked at Scout and I was like, "Oh well, I can use a lot of weapons and I can try different things out." And so I picked it up. Like it was easy to pick up really because I could try different things. And it wasn't like Warrior where I could use every weapon, but I was useless if I didn't have any armor.
Yeah.
Like at least I had like I can use a lot of weapons, I can try different things, but also like I can still help out on the field.
Yeah, true. It's tracking at level 1. Good stuff. Good stuff. Do we have any more audience questions? No? All right. So, constructive spicy takes. These are entirely optional. um, I say constructive because on my first episode we had some spicy takes that were not so constructive, and then I stopped doing it for a bit, and then we brought it back. But they're now called constructive spicy takes. So, does anybody have any constructive spicy takes about Scout or Paragon Hood in general? Yeah, Stork.
Scout is the best class for newbies, and you can't change my mind.
I do not disagree.
Like everyone says monk and barbarian, but actually, I've already prepared for this. I have the Scout. I have the rulebook open right now, and I'm going to walk through it just so everyone understands my point of view here. You have 3 points of armor, you have shields, you have a lot of weapons, but what you don't have for weapons is flail and great weapon, which are 2 things that you do not want to give a new person.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you start going through the leveling system, and the chances are is that what we should be doing is teaching them how to use their abilities for essentially a year, because they're leveling in about a year, right? So let's go with number 1, tracking. They now know what insubstantial is, and know how to combat it with their ability.
Right.
Heal is a big spell in a lot of pretty much every spellcaster, if I recall correctly. And
Bard doesn't get it.
Okay,
Well,
so 3 of them. Does Wizard get it? I can't remember.
Wizard doesn't get it either, but Bard gets adapted, or not battlefield triage, which gives greater heal.
Right.
Eh.
But the fact that it basically pushes you to learn the incant, which means that you've also learned the resurrect incant, because it's just 1 change.
Yes.
So when you go into, you've finished your leveling of Scout and you want to go into, let's say, healer, you already know what you need to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Release is also a really big thing. We were talking about the catch and release ability that a lot of players utilize to turn release into a kill spell, and you can do that as well with Scout. Shadowstep allows you to use that insubstantial state for yourself that you've been taking assassins out of already. Dispel magic is a huge part of our game when it comes to enchantments. Every one of the spellcasters has some form of enchantment. I know Bard has less of it. No one uses Silver Tongue. And more people should use Sleight of Mind, but in my area they don't, and it makes me mad. But they now know what enchantments are and what to do against them, right? Evolution allows you to use those enchantments effectively. So now you know how to get rid of enchantments and how to use them effectively. Hold Person allows you to start learning states. So now you know what the stop state is. With the release, you know how to take people out of said states. You probably know at this point what Frozen does, because you've been using your catch and release, or at least been taught about it.
Right.
And then Adaptive Blessing allows you to ignore spells, essentially, or at least 1. So now you're now starting to learn the schools. You're now starting to learn all the abilities that other classes have. If you hear "I command thee," you know that you might not have to take it if you've taken that Adaptive Blessing command. My power shoves thee. If I have an Adaptive Blessing for sorcery, I don't have to take that. And now you've learned, basically in the year that you've been learning, and if you're taking your level test, which I know a lot of people don't, but if you're at least teaching, you've learned your heal incant, you've learned release, you've learned dispel magic, you've learned what insub is, you've learned what stopped is, and you've probably learned what frozen is. And you've learned how to combat certain schools of magic. And in my opinion, once you go into the next class, like even if you go like, oh, well, my second class, I'm going to go as barbarian. Well, you've learned how powerful those immunities can be. You've learned what you may be weak against, since you can't take enchantments, since you used to be able to take enchantments as Scout. You know, it opens your, like, I get a little frustrated when people say Monk and Barbarian are the beginning classes, just because it's a beginning class because it allows you to ignore things.
Right. It's not teaching them to interact with the
teaching them how to work with them.
Yeah.
And I think Scout is a really good way of doing that.
Yeah.
Like pick a class. Like if you started with Scout first and you go into another class, you've probably learned something from Scout that lets you excel into another class. Archer is a really good one. You learned the power of bow, and you've probably had your bow broken before, which means you know how powerful men can be.
Yeah.
You know?
Fragile bow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even monk. It's like you've had resistances before. Now you can ignore most verbals.
Yeah, you've got immunities and things.
You-
Yeah.
but
Stepping
you've
up.
learned that from basically putting yourself through the gauntlet and going
Right.
through Scout.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. It steps you up to different things. I mean, I think Barbarian does a similar thing, just at a different rate, because it teaches you 2 immunities. Although those 2 immunities are really, really common, so they're But like Paladin and Anti-Power would also be a decent starting point, because it is similar to that point. It allows you to ignore 2 things, but learn about them later. Scout does uh, the same thing, but with states, because
Right.
you're going in states first
Yep.
instead of immunities first, and it's a little bit different perspective. I think
But
most
in my
classes,
opinion, you want to learn the states first anyway.
probably, especially the way our game goes. Like
Yeah.
currently with Ice Ball
Ice
and
ball is a big
Icy
deal. Yeah.
Blast and everything, the states are probably more important than immunities of schools at this like immediate moment. We'll see how that changes if the introduction of Anti-Paladin and Paladin come in, because that's two more immunity classes that have uh, precedent on the field now.
And I don't agree. I don't disagree with the fact that Barbarian might be a good starting class,
Mhm.
but there are problems with it.
Yeah,
At
there's
first level, they have. I mean, yeah, there's problems with everything. But what I mean is that at level 1, they have access to great weapons. As a
Yeah.
new player, that's not a good idea, and you don't really want to stiff arm them and be like, "Well, I know you can actually use it, but
I'm not giving
it's
you the
not. You're new."
13-foot pole arm. Not today.
Yeah, and then at level 2, I believe it's level 2, they get fight after death, and that's not a good thing for a new player.
Is it 2 or
You know,
3?
I think it's 2 or 3.
Fight after death is
Barbarian
2. Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Oh.
So after a month of playing, do you think that they're going to be able to use fight after death safely? I don't think so.
Probably not. No.
Yeah.
That is a different problem, though. I think it's with fight after death, not with the barbarian class.
Right, but I mean, you can avoid that problem by not giving them barbarian. You can just give them scout, and then they learn. My point of view of it is that I want to set these new player up for success so that they stay and they don't get discouraged after they've leveled up barbarian and now go to a different class and they don't know anything of that new class because they didn't get exposed to it.
They've been immune
You know?
to too many things for too long.
Exactly. Well, the monk is even worse for it because they can literally ignore everything that's ranged.
Yeah.
For the most part, aside from heat weapon pyrotechnics and stuff that triggers weapons. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. My opinion is that after you've leveled a full year of scout, you know a lot of things that will help you at least a little bit in the rest of the classes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even assassin, you had throwies as scout. Now you have lighter throwies as assassin.
True. Yeah, you get used to throws. You get a little bit of everything. So
You get more shadow steps than you used to, and you have more abilities for the in sub.
Right.
So now you know how to use those effectively. That's
True.
my take on it.
Do we have any other constructive, spicy takes, hot takes? No.
I'm sorry, I talked too much.
No,
I
you
like
hit the big
talking.
one.
I like talking battle games.
So, if that's all of our spicy takes, let's go. Let's plug anything that anybody's got going on. I know that we're slowly starting to open up. Certain kingdoms are opening now. Events might start happening shortly. This will be up in about a week. So, if there's any events, podcasts, activities, things like that, anybody wants to plug, do it now.
I do weekly classes for battle games. I do one class for my park page, and then my second class is at my kingdom page, and I alternate, and that's what I usually do. So if you guys want to chat battle games, a lot of people would love a different point of. I find that my kingdom in particular would benefit from seeing a different point of view than just what our kingdom is.
Where can they find those?
So my park one is the Barony of Ominous Valley. that not a lot of people show up to that one, and normally it just ends up being me talking with friends because that's what we do. But we also have the Kingdom of Viridian Outlands, and that one's our Kingdom one, and that one's usually bigger. I get more variety there.
Mm-hmm.
And those are every Friday around 5 o'clock.
Do you have a link and stuff for all that?
Oh yeah, you put a link there.
Actually, I don't, because I normally don't post it until like the day before. But if you're on those pages, I can I'll post them, and I'm sure I can find your guys' names too as well, so I can always let you know.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem messaging anyone that forgets.
I've been to a couple. They're fun. We talk about a bunch of random stuff.
Learning about the last one of learning about heat weapon was really awesome. I really enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, I got you.
Okay.
The difference with heat weapon, like a lot of people like to drop heat their weapon when they get, but it's specifically what's the word? The difference between parried and wielded.
Yeah. So the because that was on the was that on the wizard one?
Yes.
Yeah. It was on the wizard one where we talked about heat weapon specifically says the player can no longer wield that weapon. Carried is a separate thing. It just you can't swing it at people. Basically.
And the fact that release works on it.
Right.
So as myself as a druid, if I get heat weaponed, I don't have to drop my weapon, and I can swift release it if I really wanted to, and I still have that weapon.
Yep.
It is a game changer.
That is a game changer because I didn't actually know that.
Yep. It's fun.
Yep. It's the same with Gift of Air. It just says that you can't wield weapons when you have Gift of Air. That doesn't mean that you can't put them on your sword frog because you're not wielding them.
Yep.
That I knew.
Okay, so it's the same thing with heat weapon. It just says that you can't wield it, so you can still hold it as long as you're not using it.
Yeah, it's the difference between wield and carried, and so one of those weird, intricate details that you have to go hunting for to find, and then you find it, and you're like, oh, that changes like a couple things.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Sanctuary is specific to, you have to drop your weapons when you activate it.
Yeah.
That's why it's specific.
Yeah. Anything else people want to plug? Events coming up.
You got GAC.
We have GAC coming up in
August.
In the Midwest. It is August 20th to the 21st. It's in northern Minnesota-ish. It's like 2 hours north of the cities. I know CK's fully back up, open up again, right?
For the most part, there's still. I mean, we still don't have Spring War inter kingdom events and stuff like that happening, but we do have some park mid-range that have been happening now here and there. So a few parks are still shut down, but that's just based on their preference on being shut down. And then we still have some parks that are just been playing nonstop. So
each kingdom's different. All right, I think that covers everything. We've got plugs. This should hopefully be up as long as my computer doesn't decide to do anything wonky with it again. Friday, and I wanted to say this was super fun. I'm really excited to be back to doing this from a 1 week break. So thank you all for joining me, and pre-recorded Merrick will roll us out.
This has been another episode of The Paragon Path. If you liked what you heard or saw, please drop us a like and follow on YouTube or Spotify or Google Music or anywhere else that you can find us. We have a Facebook page on The Path that lets you know when we're recording, what you can join into, and what to expect next. We record these episodes live every other weekend on the Kingdom of Polaris Discord. Link is in the comments. If you'd like to learn more, please subscribe, comment, or just drop us a line. As always, happy to see you on the field. See you next time.